What's up, guys? Welcome to the GoHard podcast. I am freaking pumped today. Have an amazing guest, JR Martinez. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited, and you guys won't see in any other episode probably, and you haven't seen in the prior ones, a piece of paper in my hand because JR and I were talking. I always do everything off the cuff. It's all very authentic, but this dude's resume is so long, so long. He makes me feel like I've been sleeping on my goals my whole life. Like,
well, it's embellished a little bit.
Okay, I mean, I don't know, bro. I mean, so I had to do this because it really is each one of these things. I personally, I was telling you, we were talking a little earlier that, if there was an actor or other people on here, I respect anybody that's good in their craft, but you've done a mix of a lot of amazing things that really myself, a lot of people say that I'm very hard to impress. Bro, I'm impressed. I'm a fan, okay? Like, I don't want a full fanboy on the podcast, but so I wanted to give some of the people, myself, my people and your people talked, and it's kind of how we connected, so we weren't aware of each other.
Right.
So that's already been really cool for me because your story has been awesome for me to be able to catch up on. But some of these other people that might not know, I wanted to give them kind of a rundown on this. So
Sure.
If you guys got a quick 20 minutes, just sit tight. So I'll kind of run
through. Just fast forward through this portion of it.
Yeah, you guys are going to want to hear some of it. So we had talked a little about your book, so Full of Heart. So that was your memoir. And from just bits and pieces of that sounds amazing. Goes through so many cool things as far as your past and perspective and things like that, which is really cool. Actor on Safe, Army Wives, In America, All My Children. Okay, does that cover most of them?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Spokesperson for Operation Finally Home. So that's an organization that builds mortgage-free homes for disabled veterans. Right. The Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors. Yep. Rebuilding America's Warriors. Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. Also winner of the season 13 Dancing with the Stars. Boy's got moves. Okay, so he can shake it too.
And 2-inch Latin heels too, man.
Oh, okay.
Not only can I do it, but I can do it in 2-inch Latin heels.
Dang.
That's hard.
I'm telling you, the resume's getting longer. Don't give me anything else, dude. I already got to try to read through this. Cover of People Magazine, Sexiest Man Alive issue. And people, I know you've been trying to hit me up. You must have the wrong address because I didn't get my invite for that episode, but I'll give it to my boy.
I know some people.
Okay, cool. So it probably got lost in the mail. The snail mail is an issue. U.S. Army veteran, Purple Heart recipient. I mean, dude, that's amazing in and of itself. So amazing. Grand Marshal for the Tournament of the Roses Parade. You have a long list of awards. Some of them are the Ivy Award, the National Red Cross Spirit Award, National Disabled American Veterans of the Year Award, California DAV of the Year Award, appearances on Access Live, Entertainment Tonight, The Oprah Winfrey Show, 60 Minutes, Ellen, The View, Good Morning America, Dr. Oz, CNN, Fox, and I'm out of breath, but there's probably more. Featured in Los Angeles Times, Washington Post, New York Times, Guidepost, Success, Salute, U.S. Veterans, DAV, and a bunch of other personal accomplishments. So for any of you guys out there, anything that we've ever talked about on this podcast has been somebody that's been able to overcome adversity and be able to have a better mindset. And hopefully you guys are able to resonate with some of that and take something from it, from your own struggles, and go forward. So with that being said, why don't you tell us just a little bit of kind of the summation, if we could get like the quick 5-minute rundown of who you are and kind of what you've overcome.
Yeah. Obviously everybody, when they think of my story, they start in the military, right? Because that's the traumatic event that took place in my life. That's where it took place. But for me, it's a matter of, you have to go all the way back to my childhood. We talked a little bit about that before we started recording, but my mother's from Central America, El Salvador, and she came to this country, of course, like a lot of people looking for opportunity, and, met my father, ended up having me. My father, when I was 9 months old, decided this is not what I wanted to do, and so he left, leaving my mother alone to raise me, and I was born in Shreveport, Louisiana, and, in the first 9 years of my life living in Shreveport, Louisiana, I mean, seeing essentially my mother go through a lot of hardship and deal with a lot of loss and a lot of abuse, her trying to, find a partner and hopefully a positive role model for me. Unfortunately, fell into some bad relationships. And at the age of 9, we moved to Hope, Arkansas. And that was incredibly tough for me because when I was 9 years old, third grade, like I was like, you kind of have like your system and your friends, and then suddenly I'm thrust into this new environment. And kids have this really odd thing where they feel the need to kind of attack the new kid on campus, you know, for some odd reason, and to kind of let them know, like, this is who we are, and this is where we stand, and et cetera. And of course, being a boy, I felt like the only way I can essentially kind of stand up for myself was fight, and that didn't work out because I got myself into trouble. But I quickly learned at the age of 9 how I needed to learn how to adapt. I didn't necessarily know what the word meant. I didn't know that specific word was not utilized, you know, but I was just told that, hey, listen, you have to make it work here. Because I, of course, wanted to leave Arkansas, go back to Louisiana. My mom was like, that's, you know, this is where home is now. You know, I was a lot of gangs, a lot of drugs, a lot of violence, you know, in the community that I grew up in. I never was cool enough to hang out with the white kids or the black kids. And then when there were more Hispanic kids that showed up, I wasn't Hispanic enough to kick it with them. And so I just like, yo, like, I don't like, I don't care about it. I don't care about any of this, but, you know, it mattered. And, so when I was 17, I orchestrated for my mother and I, because it was just the two of us, I orchestrated for us to move away from Arkansas and go to Georgia. And based on, we had visited, you know, Georgia, Dalton, Georgia, you know, right, you know, before one of our friends lives there. And we went out there and loved it. And I just thought, man, I need to get out of Arkansas, because I was afraid if I stay in this environment, I become this environment.
Right.
And so I orchestrated for us to relocate. And my mom said, all right, let's do it. And, you know, she trusted me. She supported me, which was incredible.
Yeah, which is awesome.
And we moved to Georgia, and I graduated high school from there. Needless to say, my senior year of high school was like the best years of my high school life. Graduated from high school, joined the military, United States Army, 11
And what
Bravo.
made you join the military?
There was a lot of reasons. So I was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened. You know, like a lot of people, of course, witnessing what was taking place in our country,
automatically want to shoot in there and do something about it.
Because for me, I had a little bit of a different perspective from a lot of my peers, where, you know, a lot of my friends who were born in this country and raised in this country, like that's all they knew.
Right.
But I had the luxury, and at the time, maybe I didn't see it as a luxury, but now I understand it's a luxury, to go to El Salvador 5 times before I graduated from high school. And my family lives like, I mean, it's like third world country, El Salvador. It's not San Salvador with a city and there's electricity and there's bathrooms. No, I mean, there's no electricity. I mean, so you use candles. You use the restroom in the woods. Like,
that's crazy.
You take
for you, that had to be, since you were born here, the culture shock had to be crazy.
It was incredible, man. Taking a shower in a creek and then knowing that you drink water out of this creek, but then you shower and you wash your clothes in this other creek. Like, it was
crazy.
It was insane. And what it did at a young age, it allowed me to appreciate it. So the society said that we were poor. Right. Because what my mother's income.
Right.
But being in El Salvador, I quickly realized, yeah, we're poor to the rest of everybody compared to everybody else in America.
Our community.
Yeah, but we're rich simply because we have electricity, we have a restroom, we have a warm shower. I can go to school, and it's like a right and law. I have to go to school versus there, like, kids are being put to work at a young age because they have to eat. Yeah,
you had an amazing gift of perspective that other people just were off.
And so when 9/11 happened, not only was I frustrated because I felt, look what they're doing to our homeland, but I looked at it as, because they're attacking our homeland, they're taking my mother's opportunity away, and because of the opportunity that this country provided to her, it's taken away from my family in El Salvador, because my mother was supporting the family in El Salvador. So for me, it had a little bit of a deeper meaning.
Yeah.
So, you know, and also, so I immediately was like, I want to do something, right? But I also looked at the military as, I was kind of floating around, not really sure what I was doing, you know, with life, and not sure what I really wanted.
It was a positive direction.
Yeah, it would give me an opportunity to serve. It'd give me an opportunity to give back. It'd give me an opportunity to get some discipline. I'd potentially see the world, you know, be stationed around the world. Who knows? And my thought process was 3 years, 19 years old, 3 years. I'll get out when I'm 22. I'll take that money that I'll get to be able to go to school and do my thing and move on with my life, right? Like, that's all I thought.
Yeah, we always got plans. They don't always work out.
You ain't lying. And I joined. I went to basic training. I joined as an 11 Bravo, an infantryman. And infantry, for people that don't know, it's front lines, it's combat, and your specialty is you know how to fight. I mean,
right.
That's essentially what it is. And because you always find yourselves in those environments where you have to fight. And I picked that field because my personality is, if we talked about this earlier, like I'm all in or I'm all out, right? And so for me, it's like if I'm going to do 3 years and that's it, I'm going in. Like I'm going to do it. I want to say I was a part of it, right? So I go off to basic training in Georgia for 3 months, and then so I joined in September 2002. January of 2003, I was assigned to my unit, which was the 101st out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which is like right 45 minutes away from Nashville. 19 years old still. Incredibly naive, man.
Oh, for sure. But thought you knew everything.
Thought I knew everything. Nothing's going to happen to me. Yeah. I joined the military during a time of war. We were already in Afghanistan, and there were rumors of us going to Iraq. But I was incredibly naive to think, I'm not going to go to war.
Right.
So I was just having a good old time. For me, this was like college. Like I was away from my mom. I love my mom, but I was away from her. I was on my own. I was around men that had been there and done that. Like I was having a great time. And one of my sergeants came up to me one day. He said, hey, man, you need to be prepared because we're going to deploy sometime soon. Now, he wasn't referencing physically. He was talking about mentally. I need to get in the right state of mind. And this is my response to my superior, right? I said to him, I was like, Sergeant, I just got out of basic training. I just got here. I'm not going anywhere yet. Relax. And I tapped him on the back, like just casual. Like I'm talking to you right now as a bro. And I'm like, relax. Yeah. And I had to do push-ups for telling my sergeant to relax, because that's not, appropriate.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, exactly. And, but I think that essentially just kind of shows that I really didn't think anything was going to happen. And sure enough, 2 months later, I was on a plane heading over to the Middle East, going to war at the age of 19 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
The mindset from where, in a matter of months, where you were to where you landed, I mean, there had to be some serious points where, you talk about when you were younger, being able to adapt in those situations has probably helped you, but it was still, regardless of how good you are at adapting, that had to be a serious shock to the system to be hitting the ground, and all of a sudden that's your life now.
Yo, man, it was. I mean, you can't showcase it. You don't have time to showcase fear in the military, especially when you go into a war zone, because that moment of pause, that moment of thinking, like, I'm terrified, I'm scared, is potentially the moment that either you lose your life or because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, someone else loses their life. Right. So you have no time to essentially share that. But I definitely felt it. Yeah. I was terrified. I mean, I had no idea. And I think that's the secret, right? When people talk about like, well, I've dealt with a lot of change in my life, and change is no big deal to me anymore. Yeah, that's true, but there's still fear that comes along with any sort of change, right? Any sort of new environment. There's still something that comes along with that. And so for me, being in this new space, I knew I didn't have all the answers. I barely got all the training that I needed. Right. So I had to rely heavily on the guys around me to kind of just show me the ropes and kind of go through the motion. But something really interesting happened within the first couple of weeks of being in Iraq. So our job as infantrymen, we were one of the units people would come to and say, help us get from here to here safely. So example, someone's in supplies or transportation or in the medical space or a cook or whatever. We were one of the units they would come to and say, help us get from here to here safely. Mm-hmm. And essentially because we knew the lay of the land, because all we did is patrol through these different towns and communities. And so we would pretty much surround them as, kind of like, like a...
You guys were armor, basically.
Yeah. And that's essentially the way that's what we were, and we got them there safely, and mission complete, and wait for the next mission, and in the mix of some other things.
So basically everything you did each time was dangerous.
Yeah. And
if somebody needs protection, there's probably a threat. Right? So every single job you had was you were at risk.
Yeah. And the thing is that, war is not what it was or what's depicted in those old Wild Wild West movies where it's I know you're the enemy and we're going to stand right in front of each other, and whoever can draw first and shoot, bam. Right. That's not how it works. You didn't know who the enemy was. Right. You didn't know where they were. You didn't know where it was coming from. It could have been the person that was right in front of you that suddenly is now off. a civilian, it doesn't look as clear as you would think it is. Like, it's like, oh, it's someone in a uniform and with a weapon. And it's just, you just didn't know. So you always had to be on, because it could be anybody, right? And
which is just a whole different level of stress on a regular basis to
absolutely.
control. As you're saying, you're already trying to make sure you don't show or allow the stress you already have to affect you.
Right.
Now that's an added level of now that part
so
you can't show.
You're away from freedom and family and friends. And then now you have this element of where every person that you look at is considered a threat. And I mean that from a standpoint of like someone like you. Yeah. I mean that as a standpoint of like your wife. I mean that as from a standpoint of that could be your child. Right. Your child is a threat to me.
That's
your
crazy.
Wife is a threat to me. Your mother, who is potentially 75, 85, 90 years old, is a threat to me. Everybody is a threat. And so, and I touch on that, and we don't have to elaborate on it, but I think it's important to touch on, because when people are trying to understand veterans, when they, try to transition back into the civilian sector, and they talk
that's where their mind is shifted to, and now they got to shift back to, and now, that's just grandma.
That's just grandma,
right.
Or that's just a kid, and that, that's just somebody just running up to me to give me a hug,
right?
But the mind has been trained and wired to view everything as a threat,
and in a very intense way. Not wired like we hung out for a little bit, and I kind of saw that person in this light, but like in a very self-saving type of way. Like, this is out of self-preservation.
For sure.
I have to view these things this way. And I think that ingrains things a little deeper. So when you talk to veterans, you do hear more stuff like that. It's different than reprogramming, like, that was my coworker and I saw him as a coworker, now he's my boss.
Right.
Like, you can adapt to that.
You can adapt to that. You can make that work, unless you don't like that person, whatever. But you can make that work.
Yeah.
But this, and that was incredibly stressful. But something happened in those first couple of weeks of being a part of these missions, where I remember one particular day, it was late at night, and it was my turn to pull patrol and guard, and so everybody else was asleep and I was awake. And I remember sitting there and just, looking up at the sky, and, it was dark and in the middle of the desert, and thinking to myself, the mission that we were a part of earlier. And I thought to myself, and I never forget this, and I just thought to myself, I don't know who those people are that we helped get from A to B. But I believe that those people are going to go help somebody else. And I was a part of the process of helping them get there. A very small part of the process, because I was a private in the Army. And if you know anything about the ranking system in the military, a private is essentially a paid intern.
Right.
Like, you have no voice, you have no opinion,
right.
You do everything and anything that's asked of you.
But your point is, you're a part of a chain, and it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, all the links play a part in making sure that it gets done. So you made sure that your part of the chain was done to pay it forward to the next one.
And luckily, we had leadership that ingrained that and instilled that in us, and allowed us to really understand that what I did as a private was crucial to the sergeant doing his job, to the colonel doing his job, to the general doing his job, and vice versa, right? So then I was like, wow, service.
Yep.
That's what I'm a part of. Oh, wow, I have a purpose. So I bought in, and I started thinking to myself that night, well, maybe not 3 years. Maybe I'll do this for 20.
Yeah.
Maybe more. And then I started plotting in my mind, okay, when I come back from this deployment, I'm going to go to Ranger School. I'm going to go to Pathfinder School. I'm going to go to Airborne School. I'm going to go XXXX School. I'm going to be the most tapped out, badass troop that I can be, soldier that I can be. And that became my new plan. That became my new goal, because I was introduced to something else. And then suddenly, bro, that was taken away.
Yeah. Which is even, obviously as most people that know your story, is that got taken away, and that was, the tragedy. But even right before that struck, I think that was still something that played as a positive thing for you, because most people, a lot of us, we wander through life trying to look for something that makes us feel that purpose you felt.
That gets us up in the morning, right?
And so for you, in that moment, finding something, even if it's not what you do forever, is a lot of us are just like, will I ever find something that makes me feel like I'm doing something, that it gives me a true purpose, that excites me in the way that it excited you to be head to toe the best you could possibly be. So many of us are just like, man, I can't find that, and I feel hollow because of it. So I think that was already like the beginning of, you and I had talked about what sets somebody apart from, this mindset or that mindset, or being able to overcome something or not. And it sounds like from that was already like something that, without maybe even noticing, was already a positive thing that was already ingrained in you. It's like, I found something that I was passionate about, and that's something powerful on its own.
I held on to it. I got a taste of it, and then I just held on to it, and I wanted more of it. And I knew that this environment would fulfill that need, right? And fulfill that desire and that thirst for this. And it was incredibly positive. And for me to find that at such a young age, and it was such a benefit, because at that age, at 19 years old, for most kids, they're just trying to just
wandering,
trying to just go get through the day, right? Which is fine too, And so I was incredibly lucky and blessed to have found that at such a young age and so early into my service that I started thinking, well, this can be something I could do for the rest of my life. However, I was also, 7 months into my, enlistment, here I was thinking, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so when I tell people about the 5th of April of 2003, when we were driving a Humvee through a city called Karbala, and the front left tire suddenly runs over a roadside bomb, and the other 3 guys that were in the truck with me are thrown out of the vehicle, all walking away with minor physical injuries, mind you. Now, I emphasize the physical because they dealt with emotional, mental wounds, from that day. But I was trapped inside. The vehicle caught on fire, and within a matter of seconds, it was engulfed in flames, and I was completely conscious, trapped inside of this Humvee, and I can see my hands. The way that I was pinned, I can see my hands, and now you can see that my hands they're skin grafted, right? Like, because that means that the skin was burned off,
right?
And I can see my hands changing, and I can tell you, it's incredible the details that I remember for those 5 minutes that I was trapped inside of the truck, of just like everything slows down. It's incredible how time just slows down, and you have so much time to think about all of the things that you wanted to do, all of the things that you won't get to do. You start thinking how long you've been in this situation and enduring this pain. It no longer feels like 5 minutes. Now it feels like 50 minutes. Now it feels like, and I remember in the mix of, because I had also internal damage. So I had broken ribs, lacerated liver. It was hard for me to breathe. So in the mix of me trying to get oxygen, I was actually inhaling the smoke from the fire, which was doing more damage than the actual burn itself to my skin. And I remember I was gasping for air. I was like, just trying to get some oxygen. And then in between every single gasp, I would scream and I would yell, help, help, help. And I think about that because I just remember feeling incredibly hopeless, incredibly lost, incredibly forgotten. Here it was preached to me, this is a brotherhood, look after one another, you take care of one another, we're going to help each other get home. And to me, I felt like I was in this Humvee forever.
Right.
And these guys aren't coming to save me. And I'm like, they forgot.
Yeah.
And it felt good. I remember it felt good to close my eyes. It just felt so relaxing. Just to close my eyes and just let go.
Yeah.
It felt great. But then in my mind, I don't know what it is. And this is what you and I talked about earlier, just kind of with your story and the things that you did and what you've been able to build, yourself and then what I've been able to do. And like, what separates? Like, what is that thing, that exists? And so for me in that moment, I just remember thinking in my mind, I can't close my eyes, because if I close my eyes, that's it. I've given up. Yeah. And I would fight to open my eyes again, and I would continue that vicious cycle of help, help, and then I would close them.
Which is crazy, and that amount of pain.
Yeah. Well, at some point, because I had third-degree burns, you get to the nerve, and the nerve's now shot. So you feel the immediate pain, but then at some point, it's just like you don't really feel it. Like you're kind of numb at this point, and you're just kind of...
And the adrenaline and everything.
Yeah. Your body's going through a phase of shock. There's a lot going on. And so I actually didn't feel the pain as much anymore until I was pulled out of the Humvee 5 minutes later. And I guess I got some cool air on me, and I felt it on my face. And I remember screaming and yelling to my sergeant, and I was actually pulling on his BDU top, his uniform, and pulling them down towards my face. And I was like, my face, what's wrong with my face? And I'll never forget, Sergeant Valdez, he got down on his knees. And this is a dude that really rarely showed any emotion.
Right.
he got down on his knees and he put my head in his arms and he started to rock me. And he started to call me baby boy. And he's like, "You'll be all right, baby boy. Hang in there, baby boy." This is a man that is a soldier in the United States Army that's a sergeant who, you know, and here he is now suddenly.
He's built out of stone. And
yeah.
Now
now he is a father because he's a father. He's now a father. Now he's a brother. Now he's a husband. Now there's this human element that now comes into play. And he's now referring to me as baby boy, right? This sentimental side of him. And shortly after, I was put on the truck, and I was driven to a location where they can put me on a helicopter and take me to a local medic station set up in Iraq, where the doctors made a decision to put me in a medical induced coma for two reasons. One, because my body was going through shock, so I was fighting off all the doctors and nurses, preventing them from doing what they needed to do to give me a chance. And then two, they said, well, if he makes it, because they weren't sure if I was going to make it, if he makes it, he's going to need all this energy because it's going to be a long road. So let's just put him out.
And was part of it because they might not have had what they needed at that time to do anything further?
No, it was literally about he needs to chill out.
Yeah.
Because I later ran into a couple of people that were at that unit, and they said to me, they specifically remember me fighting them off and telling them, I'm fine.
That's crazy.
Clearly, I was not fine.
Yeah, it's crazy how the mind works in those times.
Yeah, and I'm fine. I'm good.
Probably because we want to be.
I want to be.
In that
I don't want to
state,
you don't want to accept.
Yeah,
you don't want to accept.
I'm good. Let me just go home and it'll all be okay.
Exactly. Everything. We'll just keep moving on past it, right? And so it really was about letting him rest, and then we can take him into emergency surgery. Because then I was flown to Landstuhl, Germany. I went into emergency surgery when I arrived there, and I have this huge scar that goes from here all the way down to like my waistline, and and the way the doctor explained it when I finally came to and I saw the scar, I was like, what is this? And what happened here? And he was like, "Oh, we just went in and cleaned you up," and I was like, "That's it." He's
Did
like,
an oil change?
But this is what's crazy about that. So I come out of my coma. So so after Germany, I'm there for 3 days, and then I'm flown back to the United States, and I go to the burn center for the military, which is in San Antonio, Texas. And 3 weeks later, 3 weeks after I'm injured, I come out of my medical induced coma. They wean me off, and they're like, "All right, let's pull him out of it, and let's see how he does." And I come out of it. I see doctors and nurses and staff members in my room because this is a big moment. Am I going to survive? Am I going to be okay? Am I going to be able to come out of the medicine, off the medicine, and function on my own? And they pulled the tube out, and I remember them instructing me that when they pulled the tube out, I needed to cough and spit up everything that's been sitting there for weeks. I did that, and then the next morning, the doctor came into my room and he said, "Listen, by now you've noticed you can't do anything for yourself. You can't feed yourself. You can't walk. You can't bathe yourself. You can't go to the restroom. You can't even pick up the remote and change the channel on the TV. Like, you can't do anything. You're incredibly weak, incredibly fragile. Like, I lost, I think it's like 50, 55 pounds.
Wow, that's crazy.
Instant diet, bro.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
It works.
Yeah, no, I don't know that we're going to be able to sell it, but I think that it does. We'll say it's effective.
So how do you bottle that, right?
Yeah,
and market that?
I don't know that anyone wants to buy what you'd be selling at that point. I think the sacrifice is a little too great for that. I have a hard time getting clients to do cardio, so yeah, I don't know, bro. But
you just got to go along for the ride, man.
Right.
Like, wait for that boom to happen. But so I mean, it was insane because within that first week of coming out of this coma, not only am I learning my new truth and the realities of physically what I'm unable to do, which for me felt like a few seconds ago, physically, I was this 19-year-old infantryman that could do everything.
Oh, could take on the world.
Yeah, and now suddenly I'm a 19-year-old baby,
right,
in many ways. And my mom and a nurse are going to feed me and change me, right? And clean me up after I use the restroom in a bedpan. I mean, humble you real quick.
Yeah.
But then also I was told, because I said, all right, this is what's wrong with me right now. When can I go back?
I love it. But like you said, that's that extreme mentality.
Yeah.
Regardless of what's standing in your way, the mind is always just locked on that same target.
I have 11 more months. I'm supposed to be with the guys in Iraq, like finish my tour. And I somehow got out of it early, but how can I get back?
Right.
And they said to me, unfortunately, you will no longer be able to remain in the United States Army. So you're going to be medically discharged. So within that first week, I saw my face, I saw my body, and I also had to come to terms with I was no longer going to be able to remain in the United States Army. So my identities were stripped away from me, meaning the identity, the physically of what I knew for 19 years of my life, right? Like what I saw in the mirror every day. And then my identity that I was starting to create for myself of being of service, having a purpose. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do? And they're like, well, that's where the work comes into play. And to get thrown into this world.
And at the same time, you can't move your hands or do anything else.
I had like claws like this, like they were the claws, because the skin, what happens with burns, it contracts. So, for example, like my eyelids were, because I was burned on my head and on my face as well, like what it did is it pulled the skin in opposite directions. So I couldn't close my eyes. So I'd sleep with my eyes open. And I still sort of do it now. And my wife, and I've had multiple surgeries too, where they come in, they cut the eyelid, drop it down to like its midpoint, take a piece of skin from some part of your body, and then place it there, sew it in, and then you have like a bolster on your eye for like 2 weeks. And then you hope that the skin takes, and then you're able to close your eyes. Like you get that coverage from your eyelids, which ultimately protects your eyes from drying out, or of course being exposed to anything. And but I still sometimes my eyes don't close fully, and my wife's always looking at me. Sometimes she's just like,
are you watching me? Yeah, like,
are you awake?
Bro, you could play that to your advantage. We'll hit on that later, but I think you got some.
It's like that selective hearing, right?
Right. I'm asleep, or am I? Be on your toes.
She's always like,
yeah, tell her you better be acting right.
But yeah, I mean, that was incredibly challenging to come to that.
And how
reality.
did you respond to that? Like, what was the most traumatic? I mean, probably just the whole thing. I guess there probably wasn't a single moment, but was it losing your identity physically when you looked in the mirror? Was it the inability to use your body? Was there certain points? Was it the military, or was it just kind of the whole thing was just a massive struggle?
It was definitely the whole thing, but I think if you were going to put, kind of percentage on each one of those three things, I would say that my appearance was the thing that hurt the most, because growing up, I was always called like, oh, you're so handsome, handsome, right? And so I kind of, like a lot of my friends were like, you're a pretty boy in high school, right? Like I cared about, I have a friend that he has a 4-year-old son, and they showed us a video that his older sister, took of him. He's 4 years old, and there's a video. He's in the bathroom, and he has like a cup of water, and he's wetting his hair, and he's like looking in the mirror, and he's like making all these faces, and then he takes the cup and he pours more on it, and he's like,
I love it.
Yeah, at 4 years old. And I was like, yo, I was doing that at like 16, 17, 18 years old, right?
That kid's going to be trouble for
exactly. Sure. And so like it's funny because, that was the thing that probably hurt me the most, is to see that suddenly I wasn't that handsome kid anymore.
Right.
Now I was this image that was incredibly terrifying. That's the way I looked at myself. I mean, I was this scary individual that no kid is ever going to, want to be around me. No woman is ever going to want to be around me. People are going to constantly try to avoid me. That was my thought process. That's where my mind went to.
Right, which had to be incredibly heavy.
It was. And of course, you got the other two factors, but then all of that forced me into this deep, dark hole of depression and anger and regret. And I was incredibly frustrated at everybody that came into my room. I mean, I would just lash out. And of course, chaplains came in. My mom, of course, was there. I mean, everybody. And I didn't want to hear what anybody had to say, because the way I looked at it is like, you're not going through what I'm going through, so what can you really say to me?
Right.
Which is what we all do.
Yeah, for sure. And when you were in that situation, the people that were coming in, you're in this dark place. How long did that go? And at what point did you start to kind of feel any sort of hope, or when did you feel like you started to see any sort of light, and why was that? So
for about 2 or 3 weeks, I was in this space, just incredibly negative and just mad, and really wouldn't communicate with anybody. Wouldn't even tell my mother I loved her when she showed up in the morning for visiting hours, and when she left at night, when visiting hours are over. I didn't say anything to anybody. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, my mom one morning walked into my room, and she walked up to the side of my bed, and she asked me, she said, "How did you sleep last night?" And I, just kind of looked over, because I wasn't as mobile, and I just kind of turned my head as much as I could, and I looked at her. And I said, what do you care? And she said, Mira, Jose Rene Martinez, te voy a decir una cosa. Like straight out, just like that. Like said my whole, and it's funny because like a lot of people don't speak Spanish, you know, that are listening right now. And, you know, I might need to translate, you know, what exactly I just said. But the truth is I tell everybody.
She spoke mom and she
spoke
it aggressively.
Spoke mom and she said my first, middle, and last name. And that's a universal language amongst moms.
When mom comes in with that tone, regardless of ethnicity or language.
When she goes through that much effort to say your whole name, she's not happy.
It doesn't matter third degree burns or not. You're snapping out of it.
I know. And it was, and she hit me with this, you know, let me talk to you about life and tell you this and tell you that. And I hit her with the same thing. What are you going to say to me? Because I don't see this on your body. This didn't happen to you. We were in this room for about 2 or 3 hours. I mean, just going back and forth, crying, yelling. And ultimately, it was just the underlying question that it always existed was why?
Yeah.
Why? And my mom at the conclusion said, I don't know why this happened to you. I have no idea why this happened to you. All I'm asking you to do is 3 things. Try to be JR. Be that positive kid. Because I kind of always had this optimistic perspective and was kind of like always this positive kid, always laughing, smiling. That's always who I was. Try to be that.
Right.
Have a little bit of faith. Believe. That's all I'm asking you to do. And the difference was, because I had no other alternative.
Right.
The difference was I was willing to listen to my mother, not just hear her. And I tell people there's a difference between listening and hearing, right? Hearing is what I do with my wife. Like I hear what you're saying, like, you know, but, you know, she's like,
right.
And I'm like, I hear you, you know?
I hear my wife every time she tells me to take the trash out.
Exactly, right. But listening, like, all right, I'm listening to you.
Right.
You know, that's a whole nother thing. And so, you know, here I am now in a situation and I'm like, well, that's all I got. So I got to anchor on, you know, hold on to those 3 things and just try to apply it. And literally what I did, I had this mental note in my head where I took a sheet of paper where I had all my goals on it and I just turned the page and it was a blank sheet of paper. And on the top, I wrote those 3 things. And so my goal was to, every morning when I wake up, try to be positive, believe, have faith. No matter what happens in the day, no matter how bad it is, before I go to bed, those 3 things. And
what's crazy is you were saying,
me.
you know, that you had no choice. But what's so crazy is that shows your mentality. And the mentality hopefully other people take from that is a lot of people in that place do feel that they have the choice to still not do that.
Right.
Because I'm still going to just be depressed.
Right.
And I'm not going to do that. So I love that you even said that is in that moment it clicked for you that you don't have a choice because that's all you have. And I think it's important for people to realize no matter what place they're in, there is something that they should attach to.
In the midst of all this loss, the one thing you always have is the ability to make a choice.
Right.
And that's on you. Like I can't control necessarily how I was injured, where I was injured. You know, I mean, I guess I could if I didn't join the military and put myself in that situation, but I can't control what happened to me.
Right.
But I can control this particular moment and I have a choice, right? And all of us have a choice. Are you going to continue to allow what has happened to define you, to shape you, or are you going to essentially utilize that and say, okay, this is going to be something I'm going to use to my benefit in order to get out of this and to find the next thing. And for me, it was about not this long-term vision, not about what I'm going to do for 20 years. It was about literally getting through every single day. And I had to start small again, which was incredibly challenging because at the age of 19 years old, is essentially
take over the world and
start over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had these big goals that were all defined and huge, and to start over with these really small goals.
Yeah.
But what's so crazy is those are kind of the things that what I've noticed in anything that I've done or a lot of other people is those small goals are a lot of the time what it takes if you're starting with nothing or starting from a place that's rough, whether it's financially or whether it's coming from trauma is, you know, you have to be able to go from that place where you feel like you have nothing and there's no hope. And you have to be able to take something small, as whether it's a client that comes to me that's 500 pounds, you know, is like, how could I ever? When you're looking 600 miles down the road, it just seems so far away.
Yeah.
And the tasks are so daunting.
Yeah.
So for you, as those small things, you know, I think that that's really powerful for somebody to look at. And, you know, from your story, so many people that whether it's great struggle, whether it's great trauma, in that moment, it seems so all-encompassing and so overwhelming that it's blinding to those things. And all you see is what you can never do again, what you'll never have, all the things other people are going to have that you're not going to. And if somebody could just cling to what you just said, that there's always going to be a couple things on that piece of paper that can give you that first step to take the next step, the next step. If there's a couple people that watch this that could take that, I'd be happy and feel like it's a success, because I truly think that's going to be something that could change people if they could do that.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that it's we get so caught up in trying to look for that big thing and that big thing, and where's that big thing, and where's that big sign, and it's it's those small little things that are in front of us. I mean, directly in front of us, that we tend to ignore and overlook because we're looking for the big thing. And it's like, what I learned from that, applying those 3 principles to my daily routine, that was my short-term goal. And what I've learned from that is that now anything that I do in my life now, I mean, as much as I have long-term goals, I still think about those short-term goals because they're crucial. I mean, you can sit here and be focused on how am I going to exit this room, where clearly I would walk around this table and there's a door right there. But if I don't think about strategically from a short-term perspective how to accomplish that, I'm not going to get to that door.
Right.
I want to get to that door.
Yep.
And I may jump over this table and hurt myself, and then I'm like never going to exit that door. And so it's crucial to have those short-term goals. And a lot of people, unfortunately, overlook that because they're simply focused on, I need it now. I don't have time. The goal seems unattainable because I'm X amount of weight and I want these results. And it's like, well, you need to start with one thing, accomplish that, and that one thing is going to carry you for 6 months. And then you hit the next goal. And when you accomplish that and achieve that, now that's going to carry you for another 6 months.
Yeah, it's so crazy because
those small victories are crucial.
All of them are true, but like you said, is the one that I find a lot is, especially, you'll probably talk to veterans and stuff and you're able to relate in that way. And I'll talk to people that, financially had a rough upbringing. And you'll notice that when they're in that place, again, it's so hard to see past the current situation. So like you said, is just the fact that they feel that it's unattainable. And so they're it almost seems unrealistic or unreasonable to claim a goal because they're like, that'll never happen.
Right.
And so it's having the ability to think, and especially in a situation like yours, it would be so easy for somebody to say those 3 things are still too much.
Right.
I don't want to do it.
Right.
I can't
do
do
one.
It. Right. It's so easy. You'll talk to somebody. As I just had a client that was at the grocery store. I hadn't seen her in forever, and she's like, yeah, and I said, how are you doing? And what I love is that she said, not great.
Right.
Because a lot of us don't say that. We just always say, yeah, good. And she said, not great. And I said, why not great? And she said, I haven't been to the gym. I have my blood pressure so high. I ended up in the doctor's or in the hospital. And, here's my kid. I can't be without my kid and stuff. And I said, why aren't we doing this? And so we talked for a few minutes in the produce aisle. And, that's a big thing, is that she hadn't come for so long. She'd gained weight. She had the high blood pressure. And getting that first step is so daunting and so challenging. So she said, I've been trying to go, but it's so hard to take that first step and go to the class or go do the workout. So she said, I've been trying to get a workout partner, but didn't want to do this. And I said, okay. And even sometimes the first step is still too far away and too big.
For sure.
Bring it down, make that even more of a micro goal. I said, how about you do this? Post on the members page that you want a partner and ask some, you'll probably get 30 responses of people that say, I'll meet you there tomorrow. I'll see you at that class. I go, that didn't seem like a first step to you, but that's even a first step just to get you to book the first class, to get to the first class. So I think that, your example is you went from this list of these things you want to do, and you were able to break it down into these 3 things that seem small. But like you just said, even if those 3 were too big, make it 1.
Make it 1.
Anything is forward movement.
Set yourself up for success and not failure by creating this daunting goal and for yourself that you feel like, oh my God, I'll never see the results. Like I talked to my wife. My wife is in incredible shape, but she wants more definition. She's done a lot of cardio, we'll do a little bit of weights here and there. And, I talked to her and I'm like, well, now what you have to do is you have to, spend more time like on the weight floor, that's it. And she'll go and lift one day and she's like, do you see anything? Do you see anything? I'm like, no, babe. Like, no.
That's me every ab day. I lift my shirt up. Like, the abs better be here now. Or like when we talked after leg day, you're like, is my booty shaped? Like, we're all that way.
I did this killer leg day exercise with these guys in class. And afterwards, I was like, I better have like glutes from like heaven, man.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I better.
That's how we are, is right away. If I put myself through that much pain, I better look sexy today.
Yeah. And I said to her, I was like, instead of focusing on, I want that definition, I want that cut. Think about how you're lifting weights and the amount of weights and the amount of sets that you're doing that you didn't do before.
Yeah.
That's already a success. That you stopped that you stopped everything you were doing from a cardio perspective, and then you said, I'm going to go and actually spend some time lifting, that you actually used a machine that you've never used before, and it was daunting to even be in front of that machine, but you did it.
What's crazy is you're obviously not, your specialty isn't the fitness field, but that's exact advice that we give to people. And it's funny because
so I'm a specialist
You
now.
are. Well, what you are a specialist in the mentality. What I tell people is, I'll talk to somebody about one thing and they'll ask advice in another, and they'll be like, oh, it seems like you have expertise in each of these areas. I'm like, it's not really expertise. I feel like it's a mindset that transcends into other areas. So like the way that you just applied that wasn't because you've trained 1,000 people. You're able to say, look, this is the way to look at it. And that really can be the biggest thing, is simply saying, great, you don't have the definition. And that's what we tell our clients. Did you lift a little bit more? Did you show up more times this week? And breaking it down to look that way. Yeah. But I think that's really a life perspective, not a gym perspective.
Yeah. I mean, it's I'm 35 years old, and I at 35 years old, I mean, it's getting up in the morning and getting out of bed. I mean, it's rough on me now. Yeah. And part of that is because I have to remind myself, and my best friend always reminds me, well, you have to remember what your body has been through.
Right.
Like, your body went through this explosion.
Right.
And when you're younger, your body just kind of like goes, right? Yeah. Like, you just kind of get up and
those things catch up later.
They catch up to you later, which is what we see with a lot of like veterans or first responders that are in sort of environments that, when they're younger, the body's able to bounce back, the mind's able to bounce back, but then it catches up to you later. And then suddenly now you're having to deal with all of that. So for me, it's, I go to the gym, and I easily can catch myself if I'm doing cardio, running on a treadmill or whatever. I kind of glance over and see someone else doing something, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta go up a little bit. And you get caught up in that. Or I see this dude doing a weight, like, I got to be up there too, because he looks.
Part of it's being a man.
I look like I'm in shape, right? I'm not in shape, but like, if I could be a model.
I don't know.
Like,
I saw you work out. You're in pretty good shape.
If I could be a model from here to here, like, this part looks dope. Like right here, it's like this part that doesn't look that great. The waistline.
So that's the super sexy area. If your wife asks for a picture, you're always giving her the chin and chest.
Cropping it out.
So
baby.
we're gonna hashtag the JR chin and chest. All right, that's gonna be the sexy look.
But I have to remind myself, like, I'm not competing against that dude.
Right.
I'm competing against myself.
Yeah.
If I ran a 6.5 on the tread, my competition should be trying to run a 6.6.
Right.
If I did 30 pounds, my competition is me trying to do 40 pounds or 35 pounds. Like,
yeah, and we preach that to the clients all day long, because you saw there's a mix of people. There's some people in great shape, some people that are a little heavier, but we always have this desire to look over to that next person and compare ourselves, and that can be really good or really bad, and usually really bad in the way I see people do it. Me is, I always looked at people, and if I met you, I'd be like, man, he inspires me because of this, or he does this, he does that. But what I see a lot of other people do is they almost look at whatever that person's done as where they've fallen short. So they'll see, that guy just outlifted me. I haven't been lifting hard enough. I suck. And it puts you into this really bad pattern to where if you start to chase those goals, you're chasing them for the wrong reasons. And then you got the guy.
Then you're going to get injured.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get injured, or anywhere else in life is cool. I got to have the bigger house than that guy.
Yeah.
So now you're chasing the bigger house, but not because you want it, but it's because I got to have the bigger house than him. And now you're overextending yourself. And
then you're missing out on the true lessons and the true beauty and the true richness that comes, with the journey.
Reaching what makes you happy. Yeah, going through the journey and achieving things that matter to you.
Yeah.
But I think it is the same thing, whether you're in the gym, whether it's business or anything else. The way that you view things is the crucial thing, because, like you said, is you don't train 1,000 people, but you're easily able to give this advice that any trainers or clients of ours that watch us are going to go, that's stuff they say all the time.
Right, yeah.
Because it really is, it's just a really good, sound mindset to apply to pretty much all things.
Which is, it's easy when you look at me, physically you understand that I've been through something, right? Like, it could be a stranger on the street right now, just come in contact with me and look at me and say, that dude's been through something.
Right.
But for me, I'm now in a space where I really want to emphasize and educate people and talk about the mental recovery and the emotional recovery that it took, that I had to endure. And because the mind is everything, man. The heart is everything.
Yep.
And if the mind and the heart isn't in the right place, then nothing else matters, and you're not going to accomplish the goals that you set out for yourself. You're going to constantly look at your life and say, why am I still here? And that's why for me, I had to, and we talked about this. I mean, you and I really got, personal as far as our lives and our upbringings and everything. And I told you several times, and I said, I'm incredibly proud of this, that I did this, because I think there's a stigma that's associated with it. But I went to therapy on a couple of occasions. I went to therapy, and I had my best friend, one day, he always, when I call him, I'm like, bro, I got to talk to you. And he's like, and he always jokes, and he's like, should I start the clock right now? Should I start?
I love it.
Hold on, let me get to my chair. And then when we're done, he's like, all right, I'll send you an invoice.
We all need that friend.
But he's the friend that will give it to me straight up and will say, yo, man, you need to look at yourself. You're acting this way. You're doing this. You're involved in this. Your mentality is this. But
that's a gift to have, a friend like that. It's
incredible, because he's very much like a father figure, a brother. He's a best friend. He's all of those things to me, because he's 17 years older than I am.
Yeah.
So in many ways, like,
so
he really
awesome
could
dynamic.
be a father. And but also, I'm receptive to it, because I understand that for me to accomplish and achieve whatever goals I set out for myself, whether they're short term or long term, minor or major, I need to understand the goods and the bads of who I am as a person. I need to get my mind in the right place. I need to get my heart in the right place. And so as much as people watching right now can be fixated on physically what I endured and physically what a lot of other people endure, you have to think about mentally and emotionally what those people endured as well, and what they deal with on a daily basis, to have the mind power and to develop the ability to walk out in public with you. And I don't know if you probably saw it, but I did, because now I've been trained to spot it. People staring all the time.
Right.
Like, and think about every day of my life for the rest of my life, despite my success. And some people look at me because they recognize me.
Right. Which some people
But I
did.
don't know if that's why they're looking at me.
Right.
My mind goes to, it's because of my scars. It's because of my face. It's because of that. But to still have the mental power just to be like, it's all good. I'm going to smile at him and say, what's up?
Right.
How you doing? I'm going to break the fourth wall and then say, hold on, let's talk. You don't have to just stare at me with your mouth wide open like, yo, what happened to him?
Yeah.
Because it happened.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Kids do it all the time.
Yeah.
But
what's awesome is you go out with a certain sense of confidence and ownership. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of us, we all have certain scars, whether we wear them on the outside or on the inside. And for me, is like when I didn't graduate high school, or I had felonies and I made these mistakes, those were my scars, to where it felt like anytime I'd go in a situation, people knew, everyone was looking at me like, hey, bro, that's the guy who wasn't at graduation, or hey, that's the guy that just got out of jail.
Right.
And so those things for a long time were like, if anyone mentioned it, my friends were like, hey, like, he'll physically fight. He's like, you can't ever bring that up. And they were these scars that affected me on a regular basis. But, for you being able to go into public and be like, I'm proud of who I am and this is cool, and like, hey, you can look and taking ownership of that and being proud of our past.
Right.
That's where I've been able to be now. And it's a very freeing thing. And it's something when you can look at your mistakes, but go, I'm still here, you know, or you look at a tragedy and say, but it didn't kill me.
Right.
And be able to wear that as something that you're proud of, as opposed to something that brings you down, I think is something that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, for you, you obviously had more fans that came up than people that were probably looking, but it was still, I'm sure that you still have that, like you said, kids and stuff too, as you're always going to end up facing that too.
Yeah, and especially having a daughter, I'm always hanging out with her, the kids, in her class or at the playground or whatever. And, I have kids come up to me and they're like, what happened to your face?
Oh, kids, yeah. I mean, kids
what
don't
happened to
play
your
games.
ear? Where's your ear? And there was one kid, man, like Chris,
I
man.
love it.
This kid, Chris, like, you see it, right? You're like, man, this kid, when he gets older, he's going to be trouble. And he came up to me, he's like, what happened to your face? And I was like, I was in an accident. I don't tell them in the military. I was in an accident. Where's your ear? I was like, well, I lost it. Like, that's all I tell him. And he's like, what? And I was like, let me borrow yours. He's like, no. And he runs away.
Yeah.
And the next day I came back and he was like, same thing. Walked up to me. He's like, where's your ear? I was like, Chris, man, I forgot it again. I was like, come on, man, let me borrow yours. He's like, no. And he runs off, right? Third day, seriously, dude, I'm not even exaggerating. Third day in a row, I show up again to bring my daughter to class, and he walks up. He's like, what happened to your face? Where's your ear? I was like, I got to tell this kid, like, I just got to lay it out. And I was like, listen, man, I was in the military. I was in an accident, and I was in a fire. Like, that's what happened to me. And it just, like, you just learn, like, it's funny how, like children, I mean, children will test you, man.
Right.
And
because there's no boundaries.
There's
they
no
ask
boundaries.
Whatever, no filters.
No filters. And he straight up asked me, and I was equipped already with the tools, the skills to
be able to handle it
properly. Be able to handle it and to be able to not take it in a certain way. I mean, there was 4 years ago, I was at a barbecue and this, the guy that was hosting, his kids were there and his kids were like, Dad, look at his face. Oh my God, what happened to his face? Let Dad look at, like not whispering, not quietly. And the dad's like, hey, stop to the kids. And I'm hearing this, but I can't ignore it because I hear it. But I have to pretend that I don't hear it. But then I also have to, knowing that I've heard it, I have to then ignore it in a sense and just kind of put on this thing and keep going.
Right. Kind of just try to brush it off. It's there. I see it, but I can't let it be heavy. And I got to let it just roll off.
It's so hard, man. It's so hard because
I can't even imagine
the amount of pressure and work and energy that it takes to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't understand. That's the mental and that's the emotional side of things where all I want to do in that moment is literally leave, run away, run into a dark room and just cry and be mad at the world that this is my reality. Despite all of my success, despite what you talked about being listed as People Magazine's one of the sexiest men alive, that's great. But this is the reality. I'm not walking around with a cover taped to my chest to be like, well, you know what? Yeah, but I was one of the sexiest men alive, so take that. Like I'm not doing that. At the end of the day, this is my reality. This is what I deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so many people like me deal with this on a day-to-day basis. And this is where, my daughter, who again is, 7 years old, and, she will see somebody that is different. And hey, stop staring.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay. And I was like, instead, if you're going to stare, just admire that individual, that how much courage it takes for them to come out, to be amongst you who is an able-bodied person that doesn't have to, and I have to change her mentality, which I hope that is going to be something that's going to give her an advantage over her peers as she grows up, Oh,
which it surely will.
But those are the challenges, man. It's like.
Well, that's the thing. Like we had talked earlier about people are going to look at a person in your position or anybody that's been in any spot that's hard, and they're going to ask the question, what's the difference? And I think the reason that they ask what the difference is, us as people, when we fall short, our natural instinct is to not look in the mirror and take that personal inventory of where we've fallen short and where we can improve. It's easier to say that kid had a better upbringing. That kid's parents had more money. That guy, he has this list because he had something that I don't have, and he didn't have to deal with what I had to deal with. And what happens and is powerful about your story and why I like it so much, and anything that I want to be able to hit on in this podcast is taking somebody and stripping that away. And when you can strip that away and you can say, that isn't the reality. And the person that you see with this list that's staggering, and the second page I didn't even read on, that person,
we'll post that later.
Yeah. I'm gonna make a shirt out of it. They're $19.99, so you guys can wear this. It's an amazing list. But that guy that you think must have something you don't have is a guy that still has kids that are saying things at a barbecue that makes him want to go and hide.
Yeah.
He still faces those things. And the difference, like when you and I had spoke earlier, is a lot of people will say, I don't take the risk you take because it's too scary and you're just more brave. The reality is there are still days where it's sad or where it's overwhelming and hard or where you want to run away, or there's times where it's very scary to take that next step because you're unsure of where it's going to be. The reality is someone like you doesn't end up where you are because of lack of fear or because you don't have those same reactions another person has. It's the fact that you just choose to act anyways.
Right.
And the choice you make to not go to that room and hide.
Yeah.
The choice you made to be able to embrace that situation the best way
Everything
possible.
I do, I mean, people can look at me and people have said, well, look at your life, man. It's great. Like, what do you deal with now? And I'm like, I deal with a lot of things now. Like I still deal with this, as I just touched on. But I tell people, it's like, oh, look at your life. You went on dancing and you had all these acting opportunities. And I was like, yeah, but do you know, like even when I joined All My Children, well, so just chronologically real quick, because I tend to talk so much that I kind of get off track and kind of stay one point.
I have too.
Yeah, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, I never answered your question.
Right.
So I was in a hospital for almost 3 years recovering in San Antonio, Texas at the burn center. And during that time, I started visiting patients in the hospital. What I found was service, and I had purpose again. I was helping these guys kind of go through this recovery process. I mean, meanwhile, it was helping me, and I didn't really think about it that way at that time. Well, I got involved with the nonprofit, being a spokesman for a nonprofit, helping, raise money for veterans and their families. Well, that gave me a lot of, purpose, and I was able to serve in a different way. And, I would go on television in front of, whatever show it was and talk about the nonprofit and veterans issues. And, people would just like praise me and just, applaud me and thank me and, put me on this pedestal. But then guess what? I'd still go back to my room and I would cry and I would scream and I would yell, in a dark room and throw fists at the air just because I was angry.
Right.
Because that was a temporary fix, but I still had to
felt good for a moment, but the rest of the stuff was still being
It allowed me to
through.
forget for a second, but not permanently. And so then I get out of the military at 22 years old, get into the world, and I'm thinking I'm going to be this motivational speaker because that was something that was introduced to me to do. And I said, I don't want to do it. And then when I tried it, I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. So I get out into the world thinking everybody's going to book me. I'm going to be like the LeBron James of the speaking world. Right? Everybody's going to be, we want him, we want him, we want him. And people, what they said is like, you're just a veteran. All you're going to do is talk about war. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm going to talk about life. I'm going to talk about all these other factors and components. And they were like, no, we don't see it that way. And that was incredibly frustrating because I didn't feel like I was entitled to an opportunity. I think I was entitled automatically to have the job. I was entitled
to be judged on the real things. Yeah.
Like, just give me an opportunity. That's all I'm asking you to do. And nobody was listening to me. And I was 22. I was drinking. I was reckless. I was angry. I took it out on everybody. I'm lucky to be here today. Yeah, because of what happened to me in Iraq. I survived that. But I'm also lucky to be here today because of the situations I put myself in at the age of 22, 23, 24, because I was trying to figure it out. Right. Because for 3 years, as I was recovering, I was in the safety net of the hospital. Right. So me walking around the military base, people looked at me, but it was no big deal because they were accustomed to seeing this. Mm-hmm. Versus I stepped out into the world and people weren't accustomed to seeing this. Now I had to deal with it, right? And it was my best friend one night sitting me down and really kind of giving it to me like, yo, you got to change this, and you got to look at it this way. Well, then, I don't know, maybe a year later, about a year later, he sends me an email. My same best friend, he sends me an email to audition to become an actor on a soap opera called All My Children. I said to him, when I got the email, I called him, I said, you're crazy. Like, I'm not an actor. Like, I'm never trained to be an actor. Really have no desire to be an actor. And he's like, man, this is perfect for you because they're trying to launch a storyline about a veteran and the issues that they face, but they want a real life veteran, not an actor. Yeah. I was like, dude, I can't do. He's like, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? Right. And I was like, I guess you're right. So I went on the audition. They said, all right, we want you to come back in a month and give you a scene and put you on camera and see how it goes. And I came back a month later. They put me on camera with the girl that I was going to be working with in a storyline. And a week later they called me and they said I got the part. And I said, well, how long am I going to be on the show? They said 3 months. I was like, 3 months on a soap opera, man. All right, that's cool. Yeah, that was it. And you can look at that and say, oh man, look at that. That's easy. That's perfect for you. You got it made, JR. Man. I was telling someone the other day that when I was on that show, I can't tell you how many times I got into my own head that I don't belong here. I'm not a trained actor like all of these people that have been training their whole life for this opportunity. I ended up having a couple of situations with a couple of the actors on the show, and that kind of reminded me that and not necessarily directly saying you don't belong here, but almost saying like this is not what you do, and you're definitely out of your element. And I on a couple of occasions in this first couple of months, like I was like, I want to get out of here. Yeah. I just want to run away from this because I can't relate to these people. I just want to get out of here. And I would go to my house, my apartment in New York City, and I would sit there for a second, and I just remember everything. And this kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier as far as looking back. And I would sit there and have a moment of myself, and I would say, all right, but I'm here. Right. There's a reason I'm here. And if it's only going to be 3 months, I'm going to show up. And I'm not going to let that get into my head. And, and I would literally go back to work and I would like pick up on little tips and tricks of other actors. And then I would apply it in my scenes. And what was supposed to be 3 months, man, turned into 3 years of me being on that show.
That's crazy.
Because I showed up every single day. I wasn't
But also as you showed up the first day. So
Right.
one is
Yeah.
shout out to your homie because he's a good friend.
I know, right,
First
right,
off,
right.
the friend sending that is cool that he was thinking of you. But I think that when you tell a story like that, it's super easy for somebody to listen to it and just go in chronological order. He got this. He went on it. Like I hear I went on it is you were not an actor. You had no idea what you were doing. And all of those things are so heavy enough to be like, if somebody hit me up, I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing. And you want to talk yourself out of doing those things because it's so far out of your comfort zone. So for you that's the big example was step one was not only, the fact that you kept showing up and developing your skill to do it, to stay there for 3 years, but was the fact that you were willing to take that first step because if you talk to 99% of people, why don't you want to go open that frozen yogurt shop? It's like, I don't know about frozen yogurt. I don't know about business.
Well, learn.
Yeah. Go jump out there and learn, figure it out.
Go to a spot and pick their brain.
Right.
Or, Google everything now.
Yeah, that's what we said on one of the other episodes. I said, dude, you got no excuse not to know. There's Google. Like you can Google anything. So
you don't have to go to a library. You don't have to go through pages. You can just Google.
I legit don't have a laptop anymore. I work from my phone. Like I Google everything from my phone. I send out my emails. But for you is these are the things that I hope that the people listening take away from it is that it seems easy to look at your resume and go, yeah, he's an actor. Yeah, but he wasn't an actor. And that isn't what he was trying to do.
Right.
And he got a friend that sent him something he probably found on the internet and goes, hey,
exactly.
you should go be an actor.
That's
and you're
like, I guess.
All right, cool.
But here's the wild thing about that. When I was in the hospital, those first 3 months that I was initially in the hospital, once I kind of got to that good, decent place, my mom and I, our bonding time in the evening, once I was done with therapy and everything else I had to do during the day, in the evening, we would watch novelas, which are Spanish soap operas, for those of you that don't know. And I remember, and I'm fluent in Spanish, so of course, I get, you get hooked into the Spanish. You don't even have to know Spanish to get hooked into those novelas. You immediately are like, oh, she's mad at him because of this chick, and
you can feel
it. These two were fighting because of that. And I remember one day telling my mom jokingly, I said to my mom, I said, Mom, one day I'm gonna be on a soap opera.
I love it. You spoke it into existence,
and
it
said,
happened.
What? And I said, yeah. And she was like, oh, really? Because she knows I'm always joking. And she's like, oh, really? I said, yeah. I said, I don't know the storyline, but I'm gonna have like this fly, girlfriend on the show, and and that's just that's I ended it.
All the girls gonna be fighting over me.
I ended it there. Yeah. Like I didn't have anything else. I wasn't creative enough to think of a storyline, but I was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna have a pretty girl, right?
Yeah.
And here I am 5 years later, literally in New York City on one of the most reputable, recognizable soap operas in the history of soap operas, All My Children. And I turned it into 3 years, and then I go on Dancing with the Stars, after that, and Dancing with the Stars, again. I mean,
uncomfortable. I mean, do you have a dance background?
Oh my God!
Were you in the army doing tap or no? All right,
cha-cha.
Yeah, like I don't know what it was, but I have a weird feeling that was another out of your element type of thing.
You're absolutely right, man. And you know what else is it's incredibly difficult that I think a lot of people. I don't know if a lot of people talk about this, but it's something that you have to talk about. And I think it's when we talk about like equality and women and opportunities for women. I think it's important to touch on this because as a young man, like I jumped on All My Children. I mean, Dancing with the Stars, and I was 28, right? So 28, still a young man, but a man, right? And you suddenly are partnered with a woman who is an expert in her field. And Karina Smirnoff she's a doll, but she's also tough.
Yeah.
And she would lay into me and like, yo, do this and get it right and, pay attention. And as a man, to say you're the expert and to step back and to just listen to her, that already is a challenge. And I think that's when a lot of people, maybe from the partnership standpoint, don't necessarily kind of gel.
Yep.
I was cool enough to be like, all right, you're the expert. Let me step back. I need to learn because I don't know, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And I would learn from her, and then she would then in turn understand, okay, this is how he learns, and I understand he is learning. And then, trust me. She would trust me, and we of course went on to win the competition. And
I think for you too, as we had spoken on, obviously being raised by single mothers, and that probably gives you a good ability in that situation too. One is I think being humble and checking your ego too. Is especially as a man, is you have to be able to just acknowledge when someone knows more, even if it's a woman and she's half your size. Like that doesn't change the fact she knows more. But the other thing is being raised by a single mother. You and I had spoke on that, and I think that's such a powerful thing where a lot of people look and be like, okay, you have this male figure and this is what he fits into. And a lot of these single moms, they wear the mom hat and the dad hat. And some of them, in our case, did a great job in both of those areas and, at many times. Everyone makes mistakes, but we can look back and go, man, they really instilled those things. And to me is, I had my dad during the earlier years, and then there were a lot of problems and he was absent. But my mom, I look back and we had talked about a lot of the examples and just watching our parents do certain things and make certain sacrifices. And in those situations, it probably without us even knowing just makes it easier. So you're able to look at a woman and be able to be like, cool, like I can respect in a different way and trust you
and just roll with it. It's
and allow you to take this role because that's, I already saw a strong woman do that before. And
I also know if I don't listen to you, you're going to kick my ass.
Right. Yeah. And I know
like my mom did.
Yeah, mom didn't mess around. You probably don't either, so I don't want any of that for sure. So yeah, I mean, those things definitely make it easier. And you went on to do that, and after dancing, what ended up being your main focus after that?
So motivational speaking.
Okay.
So I started doing a little bit of it once I was on All My Children, and people started to kind of see it. I started kind of building out that craft and working on that craft. And after dancing, I was speaking all over the place. And so in some cases, there were a couple of instances, the people that I went to before the entertainment stuff who said, later were like, yo, we want you. We'll make the date. We'll make it work around your schedule.
That's always fun
because
when that happens.
I love that.
That's always fun.
I love that. And I was like, well, I could do it this day. And they're like, great. And I'm like, man, actually,
well,
no,
maybe not. When are you really busy? That's the only day I have.
And I could do it from this window to that window. That's
right.
it. But there were people that saw it, that understood the dynamic and the layers that existed within me once I was on Dancing with the Stars, because that show shows everything, right? And so when I was done with the show, I was speaking all over the place, and then I wrote a book, Full of Heart, and my story of survival, strength, and spirit. And I wrote this story simply because I wanted people to truly understand everything, that it wasn't just this situation that was incredibly challenging for me. There was a whole life of pain to some degree, a lot of great things that took place, but there was a lot of struggle and a lot of hardship for me to get to the point that everybody, saw on Dancing with the Stars that made them say, we want to vote for that dude because he can dance and he's also a really cool, cat. And so, but I wanted to give people the full story because, we so too often only get like snippets of people's life and the real genuine truth. And so for me, it was about how can I share all of this information with people and allow them to hopefully, as you stated with this podcast, GoHard, they can take something from the story. They can take something and then say, I'm going to apply that to my particular scenario in my life right now that is hard and difficult for me. And then, hopefully see the same results. Because that's a sense of
fulfillment for you out of the struggle you've been through is not only, I think at the time we want to be able to reach a certain place in our lives, pull ourselves out of this dark hole. But then once we pull ourselves out of it, somebody like yourself or myself, as we said, we're similar in the way that we really get true happiness out of the service for others or in a bigger way.
Yeah.
So we want some, of course, we all want to be happy in our own way, but in a deeper way, we want to be able to service on a grand scale. And so for something like that is obviously you're paying it forward in a big way to be able to give. If at the end of the day, you lay your head down and know that there are dozens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people that are able to read a book and you're thinking to yourself, how many people is one thing going to click with to help change their life in a positive way?
And I forget, I truly do. Like I forget that I wrote a book. I forget that I was blessed that it was a New York Times bestseller. I forget that I was blessed to be on Dancing with the Stars. Like for me, my life is like pretty ordinary. I have my wife, I have my daughter, we have a black lab, and we live pretty ordinary lives. And so when I have and I think the key is that I have these moments where I forget, like I do. I forget, that I have potentially it's kind of scratched the surface where I've maybe have shared something that is going to help somebody else. I forget. And I'll have these moments where people will come up to me and say, hey, whether it's on social media, on Instagram, or, see me in person, and they're like, hey, I read your book. Or like today, there was a couple, there was a Vietnam veteran. I don't know how he knows about me, but he knew my name. He knew everything. And he came up to me. And
the way he came up, he was lit up. He was really excited to be able to meet you and be able to share a little of his stuff too.
And so it's those moments like that just remind me like, wow, like, I guess I am doing something good. I guess I am making a difference. I guess I am impacting somebody's life because, like I said, I easily forget because I'm just too busy because as great as it is to try to serve others, and you're the same way, because I saw it in the class today with you, your wife, your staff, everybody's incredibly like genuine and friendly and inviting and encouraging. And but what I have learned in the midst of wanting to do all of this work, it's just as important for me to make time for myself, because in the midst of trying to serve others and give to others, what you end up doing is, people will take. I mean, they will. They will take it. If it's free, it's for me, right? They'll take it.
Yeah.
And so, suddenly you find yourself like, oh my God, I'm exhausted, or I don't have anything left in me. And so you have to then now focus your energy on things that are going to help replenish and reboot you and give you that, that energy.
With someone like you, that's probably not natural, because you're so extreme and very like, when you dive in, you might not come up for air for a while and realize you've been so deep in something for a long time.
I had a friend one time early on, he would, I'd do all these events and he would say, hey man, have you eaten today? And I'd say, no, I haven't eaten yet. I'll eat later. And he's like, no, stop.
Yeah.
Just get a bite to eat real quick, and just take half an hour. Just eat. Just take care of yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's a crazy level for people to try to understand.
It was hard. That was incredibly hard, and so now I'm in the point now where I'm like, I have to make time for me to eat. I have to make time, and when I say eating, I mean metaphorically, like eating in the sense of where like spending time with my wife, spending time with my daughter, spending time with me, spending time. Like I have to eat the things that are going to help me be the person that I am to all these other people that may see me in that light. And I think that's incredibly important for all of us.
And it's something that anybody that's reaching a goal, it's, if you're somebody who's reaching it with a real hustler's mentality, that's not on the checklist. It's sacrifice and grind. And what I tell people is that's true to a certain extent and for a certain timeline. It doesn't mean that for the rest of your life, you're not going to have any time for yourself. And it doesn't even mean that it necessarily needs to be that way even in the beginning. You can always take a little bit of time for you. And what you had hit on earlier too was saying, that you don't even notice, you forget about it. And to me, I always tell people that's a true sign of one is being humble, but two, being in a place to be able to truly appreciate your blessings. When you talk to somebody, for me, I'm fanatical about cars. I always love cars. So when I sit in the cars, every single time I get excited like a kid in a roller coaster, and my heart, like the endorphins are going, I get really excited. I appreciate it every time. And it's because I didn't ever think I'd have that. And so it's amazing every time I'm in it. It really, every time I drive it, I remember as a kid, seeing the poster on a wall, and I remember us taking a city bus, and it allows me to be able to appreciate it. And I think someone in your position to say, I forget about it, allows you the ability to be reminded. And when you're reminded and go, hey, wait a minute, like I've done some amazing things that not only made my and my family's life better, but it paid it forward in a big way to other people. Yeah. That gives you a new sense of appreciation every so often to keep that stuff alive. And I think that's powerful too.
Man, I told you this earlier, and I said the thing that I feel that really pushes me and when you meet me, I have all this energy and this passion. And I tell people it's simply because I was on the verge of dying. Yeah. At one point. I was this close to dying. I mean, the doctors weren't sure if I was going to make it or not. And I've been blessed and granted this second chance at life. And so for me, I go hard. Yeah. Because I don't know if I'll get a third chance. And so while I'm in this second chance, I don't want to waste it, because there's so many men and women, whether it's through the military or just through life, that don't get this second chance. Yep. And so for me, I don't want to just throw it away. I want the people that have lost those individuals to be able to look at me and say, man, he's making the most of that second chance, and to feel to some degree that their significant other, their loved one would have done the same exact thing, and I am essentially a reflection of that. And so I have learned so much in 16 years since my injury. Has it been? Yes, 16 years since my injury. And so everything that I've learned, it's not for me to just kind of keep the secrets to myself, Like for me, it's like I want to share it with you, because I don't know, you're in your first chance at life. You're in your first chance at life. So if I can share something that I've applied, that I've learned in my life with somebody watching right now, they can, maybe they can help get it a little bit more right, in their first chance at life. And that's that's what I strive for.
And I think that when you and I had spoke earlier about passion, is I feel that that's something that allows you to do that in such a great way, is one is you have set a goal and a perspective that has true gravity and true meaning. For you speaking on the fact that I feel that I'm almost a living example of what someone else who lost someone could be, that's a major thing. And that's something I find myself doing on a regular basis is these are the ways that I need to provide, or that these are the situations that I've been through, and this is the opportunity I have, and this is why I have to do these things for a bigger reason. And I think those things are powerful, but they come from being passionate about what you do.
For sure.
Is you love doing this. So it's a little easier to allow people to get that message because you truly love it. And when we spoke earlier about even business, is a lot of people talk about business, and the big thing is make that money, make money. You talk to people very high in business and you're going to have very few sit downs on passion. There's very few powwows holding hands talking about the product or the service. But I think that it's a very important part, and it's still very possible where even these businesses say, yeah, we're passionate about the product. It still pales in comparison to the amount of effort they put into the profits.
To the bottom line.
The bottom line. And mine has always almost been opposite because I didn't know anything about business. So it was like, I just know that I like doing this, and I know that
you built it on relationships.
Right.
You built your success is built on relationships and community and how you make people feel.
Right. And what's that product and pride in that product from the moment they walk in the front door. What's their experience all around? And I take great pride and passion in taking each one of those areas and making it a little better and a little better. And so I think that when you look at business or you look at life and you go, cool, I'm just going to pursue this career, I'm going to build this business, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have the same impact that JR has, you're really missing the fundamental part of it, which is truly being passionate and having something that matters at the end of the day, bigger than getting that paycheck or making your business bigger.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure there's many instances where you had to do, something for maybe pennies, or, I mean, I remember, people would say, okay, to prove yourself as a speaker, we'll buy you lunch.
Right.
And I was like, okay, because I didn't have a lot.
You're all, can I get chips with it?
So what I would do is I'll get a Subway sandwich, but I'll get the foot long because I'll eat half of it now and the rest of it later, so I can get a full meal out of this. But it was an opportunity for me to work on my craft.
Well, you just used that word, was the opportunity.
Right. And all
other people would see that as a burden.
Right.
A waste of their time.
But see, and that's I think that's what separates it, right? Like, I look at it as, this is an opportunity for me to grow. This is an opportunity for me to potentially, and actually there's a couple of instances where I did speaking engagements for pennies. Yeah. I mean, literally meaning like, okay, we'll give you $100, like, because they, we feel like we got to cover something.
Right.
And I would come and speak for $100, and then later that same company or that same individual is reaching out to me to say, hey, we're going to underwrite for you to come and speak at this event for significantly a lot more money than what we paid you a few years ago. But it was because they saw that when I showed up, I was willing to do the work. I was willing to, it was all about, being personable, and it was all about, not being disingenuous. It was like literally, legitimately understanding. It's all about how do you make somebody feel. I mean, we talked about, obviously you just mentioned it from your angle, but when I travel, I come in contact with a lot of people, and it's an effort. I am consciously working when you come up to me and you introduce yourself and you share your name with me to be like, that's Larry. That's Larry.
Yeah.
That's Larry. So you wander off, you come back, a few hours later, or maybe the next day, and I see you in the elevator, and I'm like, hey, what's up, Larry? And you're like, whoa, you remembered my name.
You know how powerful that is?
That is incredibly powerful.
We did an entire survey throughout our company. We did this stuff to see. Now, we've added patent pending equipment, technology. We've built out our gyms, personal training areas. From where our gym used to be, the list is almost as long as your resume. Okay, so it's almost as long. And so there's so many things. So we want to know, out of all these things, what is it you guys signed up for? Why are you here at our gym? The craziest thing was somebody knowing their name. At our location specifically was my wife. Nadia knew my name, and they gave stories of it. And it's so crazy that no matter how much you add, no matter how much better the product is, no matter how many more features a phone has and other things like that, at the end of the day, that one thing can be the most powerful thing. Is you spending a few minutes to remember somebody's name, making them feel that connection and feel like they're part of something bigger is really important. And it's understanding most people's lives, like we've been talking about this whole time, how many struggles people have to get out of their own way and to see things are possible. Those people are, most people go through a lot of things we don't see on a daily basis. If you can be that person that did something as powerful as remembering their name and making them feel special, dude, that's priceless.
Yeah, it's funny because like that's what my That's who J.R. Martinez is built off of, right? It's built on, in the hospital, visiting all of these other patients and, just being personable with them, but allowing them to feel like they're not on this journey by themselves, right? And I put a lot of emphasis and attention and importance on that factor. And then getting into the nonprofit sector, which is obviously still an important part of my life now, but it's about the people, it's about serving, it's about giving, it's about caring. And so for me now, despite all the success, it's about not losing that element, maintaining that element. I mean, my wife and I'm always venting to my wife, and I was like, oh my God, this company and the people I'm talking to or this particular, place and this institution or whatever. And it's like, people just don't get it anymore. It's like, it truly is, it's about how you make somebody feel. When I was visiting those patients, I made them feel a certain way. Now I felt something as well, but in that moment I was just thinking of them and I made them feel something and it helped them. When I got out of the hospital after those initial 3 months and I went back home to Dalton, Georgia, and the way that community threw a parade for me and every single day was showing me so much love and support, it's about the way that they made me feel. They empowered me, right? And then there's so many examples throughout these last 16 years where all I've done is try to empower the people just simply by making them feel something, right? And vice versa. And it's literally about empowerment. And so much of us have this mentality of, well, why am I going to sit here and try to help somebody else? What's in it for me? Right. And that's the wrong attitude.
It's the wrong attitude. And I think it's also just some people don't get it and they don't, and their attitude is either something because of a mindset or something that's maybe just missing and not built in. But for me is, I had a conversation with a buddy who's a very smart guy and he went through this whole thing. I don't like how people post and talk of these motivational speakers, talk about how they care about other people. You don't care about that guy. Do you really care? You don't know him. And so the way I explained it to him was, yes, it is actually partially a selfish thing that I care because when I go help him, I don't know him now, but I'm going to get to know him, or maybe I won't and something I'll do will influence him. But it's something built into me to where I feel that I've had this opportunity and it does make me feel good living out the things that I think I'm supposed to be doing and helping him. So yes, I am helping him and I am all focused on him. But at the end of the day, it's because I feel that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And when I do what I'm supposed to be doing, it makes me feel good. And at the end of the day, knowing that I could possibly help him does make me feel better too.
Like you found your purpose and you go hard with your purpose. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that's incredibly, my wife always says to me right now, she says to me that, you're lucky to have found your purpose, so young and so early on in life. And I said, yeah, I mean, it was there. I mean, people said to me that I should try to be a motivational speaker and I didn't want to do it. I actually said no. Yeah. But again, I was like, I guess, all right, let me try it. People said that I should be a spokesman for this nonprofit. I was like, I'm not well-spoken at all. I mean, this was, I was 20 years old now, and I had this really like Southern accent. It's actually incredible when I watched that clip, and I was like, wow, like I really did have like this, Southern accent versus like now. I mean, occasionally maybe something comes out. But I was like, all right, I'll try it. I'll do it. I mean, and everything else, right? Everything else is like, and I tell my wife, I was like, the opportunities were there. The door was open, but it was up to me, again, back to that choice for me to either go through that door or not. And that's what
understanding the power of it. You're this whole time, each one of your examples paints a really clear picture for anybody that wants to actually look at it and dissect it. But is understanding the power of finding your purpose. Like you said, your wife is right. Like to me, I was just talking about it the other day where I'm like, it's so crazy. I don't know how I would live my life without doing what I'm doing. Like I would feel very lost. And people would talk to me about, hey, I heard this equity firm hit you up to buy, blah, blah. And I have no intention of selling. Why not? And I'm like, I couldn't imagine what I would do. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And there's so many people that when they haven't found it, they almost settle for so much less because it's like, I'm supposed to be a post office worker. This is what I'm supposed to do. Now, nothing against a post office worker. There's some that are very happy and that's great. If that is your thing, if that is yours, but if you are not, I want people to really realize that the difference and the reason why you've been able to do so much and the reason why you're so happy is because you took those chances knowing that finding your purpose was worth those risks. And at the end of the day, there are so many people that just go, I'll settle for this, and they just don't truly understand what they're missing. Because someone like you or me, I wake up and go, it's so crazy. Like it's such a different feeling to be doing something that you feel like you were meant to do, that you love doing.
Yeah.
And these people just don't understand when they're settling what they're missing out on.
Without, I mean, you just said it beautifully. But what I will add to that is that, you know, you and I, we've attained, you know, success, right? And, you know, it's not like, all right, we did it. You know, I opened up X amount of gyms, like, I'm good now, and just kind of coast and just take it easy.
Right.
You still got to do work to sustain that, to stay there. And you guys still got to do work because you want to continue to build. Well, for me as well, like, yeah, I've gotten here, but guess what? Like, I still have barriers and challenges as far as from an entertainment standpoint where people are like, nah, we don't see it.
And every next level is going to be the next guy that's a bigger name or whatever. So
we're always having to do work. And so for people watching right now, like, well, those guys made it. They did all the work already, and now they can just coast. The work is never done. It truly is never done. And for me, because we're the same age, right?
Right.
Like, so what's exciting is I think about, man, what am I going to do next?
Right.
What am I going to do next?
Well, that's the difference, too, is someone like you, the work is never done.
I'm excited.
Yeah, the work is never done because you're never done setting goals. So as soon as it slows down, I know you're like me. You got 20 new goals that you're going to write down, so you're going to stay busy. And the other thing for people to see is, you know, what you had hit on earlier that I wasn't able to emphasize on was you actually going out, taking initiative and putting yourself out there and seeing those things as an opportunity, even though you're not being paid at that second or you're being paid in pennies, was the same thing that I do when I'll do workshops for personal trainers now. I'll work with our owners, is I tell them when a potential member walks in the door or a person sits down for a free session, which a lot of trainers go, what a waste of my time.
Right.
Is I tell them I used to consider myself like Lenny of Mice and Men. Like I was going to crush, like it was I was so worried because it meant so much to me is I have this amazing opportunity and I'm so financially destitute. Like this person could pay like my car payment. Like this person's, and they were so valued is obviously I want to do a good job for them, but at the same time, each one of them were valued that I looked at it in such a different way than a lot of other people do. And so it just ingrained that in me that even when they weren't the financial responsibility wasn't going to be fulfilled by them anymore, it still was always a value to me and I was at an opportunity. So I tell the trainers or the owners, when that person walks in, you have two ways to view it. One is you're going to do an amazing job. You're going to service that person to 110% of your ability. You're going to give them great information they could walk away with. You're going to give them the best workout they've ever had. They're not going to be able to afford the gym, or they're not going to, it's not going to be a good fit and they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And what they're going to do is going to tell everyone else, I couldn't afford it, but they were so nice to me. They were the best gym ever. They were so great. I wish I could have. They'll come back and they're going to bring 10 people. Or they sign up. And I tell them the huge thing that you miss out on is going, that person comes in and they tell you off the bat, I just lost my job, but my friend gave me this 5-day pass, I'm going to use it. And you treat them different. That is a fatal mistake of saying, I'm not getting paid today, so this doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Every single person you cross, like you said, that you're remembering their name in the elevator, you don't know what that does for someone else, which is already good. Yeah. And the law of reciprocation and the, good vibes are going to come back. But yeah, you're planting seeds all over. And that's what I try to tell our staff, tell our owners is you have to view it that way. And if you truly love what you do, that it should matter anyways, because if you put someone through a horrible session or you don't treat them right in your gym, that says something about what you're doing anyways. Right. You should care. But I think that's why you ended up, and you'll talk to other successful people, they don't view any of those things as a burden. It's, I get to go do that.
Right.
Like, I get to do that for $100.
Yeah.
Like, that's great.
Exactly. Like, I mean, I look at all the opportunities that I have, and I just think, what an incredible blessing. I mean, sometimes when I get on Instagram and I'm like, let me post a photo, because I have to be better about being on Instagram and posting. And then I find a photo of, maybe me speaking and I think about what's the caption going to be. And then I'm like, man, I'm just going to post how incredibly lucky and blessed I am to even have the opportunity to be in front of captions. Yeah, to be in front of like 50 people or, maybe 25,000 people and actually speak, and that they're there for that moment to listen to me because they feel that there's some sort of value that I bring to the table. That in itself already is enough, know. And I think, I have a lot of friends that that are either veterans or just they're not veterans, and they'll say, well, JR, you're doing you're out there, you're speaking, you're doing it. And I'm like, why do you just put that pressure on me? Like, why am I the only one that's out there supposed to be doing it? No, you do it too.
Right.
You do it too, meaning all of us have platforms now. I mean, you know, we remember a period where, you know, there was no social media, and for you to be seen, to be visible, you had to be some sort of star. You had to be in the entertainment space.
You had to be on TV, or you had to know everybody, and
or you had to
everywhere.
have mad money just to,
to travel everywhere.
Yeah. Now, look what we're doing right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like having a podcast. A lot of people have podcasts. Everybody has a YouTube channel.
Everybody's
going to
say the same thing, though. Why would anybody care about my life? Why would anybody want to watch? It comes back down to that. Why I'm in this situation? How could I compete with those people? And it's, you know, that's what I'm hoping. Your story, what I love about it is 5,000 things. But one of the things is, you know, no matter what the situation was, you were always willing to take that chance and bet on yourself. Yeah. And when you dive out there and you take a bet on yourself, you're going to be surprised how many times you end up winning. Yeah. And it's our self-confidence is a lot of the time built on our wins or losses. You know, set yourself up, like you said earlier, with those small goals. Take a little chance on yourself. You start stacking up those W's, and all of a sudden it's like,
you're like, I got this.
Right. Like, well, why not the next thing? And that's why too is a lot of the overwhelming things is somebody will ask, you know, look at you and go, man, I could never be him. Look what he went through and look where he is now. It is that picture in itself is why you're obviously an amazing speaker, because it's such an amazing thing. But it can also be overwhelming for somebody to look at and go, how could I ever do that? Right. And the reality is it was done the same way as anyone else does, by picking those little goals and going after them. And when you were in the hospital, like you said, you didn't go, what I said was I was going to do this list of things when I was in the hospital. But people paint that picture, and they'll talk to me and go, what's your goal? And I'm like, well, you know, I want to literally influence the world in a positive way that leaves an impact for decades after I'm dropped in a dirt hole. And they're like, I could never say something like that. Well, of course, 10 years ago, I wanted to be able to order a bigger pizza to feed the family. Like, the goals weren't this size, you know, like the goals don't start off that big.
Put honey on it.
Right. Dude, if I could have afforded the honey, I was like, I'm doing pretty good. Like, I'm killing it. But that's what I want people to take from it is it can almost be, instead of encouraging, if you're already so discouraged, you could see someone like myself, like yourself, and go, why even, I could never. Yeah. But the reality of understanding that we're just like you, and when we're in those situations, it's hard to even pick that one first goal. And the first goal isn't, I want to take over the world.
Right.
The first goal is, I want to get out of bed. Exactly. I want to put my shoes on.
Exactly. And it's true. Like, your goals will always shift and change based on your new environment, based on what you're exposed to. But the key is to have those goals. And the key is to then have a long-term vision, but yet still have that short-term vision to understand the steps that you have to take in order to accomplish that. And so it's about, like, it's about always looking for ways and looking for signs that say, okay, this is the new direction. This is where I need to go. This is the space I need to, to be in. This is the work I got to do in order to continue to grow and to prove to people and show people who I am and what I am. And I think that's, I think, for me, I'm, being blessed to have, a daughter. She every day
that's got to be a daily reminder.
It's an incredible reminder to, Deadpool says, children give us an opportunity to be better than who we are. And it's incredibly true. And I think about that every time I look at my daughter, and I'm like, I haven't done things perfectly well. I've done some things right. But every time I'm with her, every time I speak to her, every time I'm around her, every time she sees me interact, I'm hopefully doing the right thing and being better than I used to be. And because I want that to sit with her, and I want that to be a crucial part of her life and the way she kind of, proceeds in her life and interacts with other people as well.
And a lot of the stuff you say is integrity. Like, everything that you say kind of just, it screams integrity, because things matter. Like,
right.
Each of your actions and the things you do for a bigger reason, and it matters. It has gravity. And that's what a lot of us, when we end up in a bad spot, is we want to just kind of undermine those things and take the easier road. And that's okay. That doesn't matter. And it's, I did that. That was bad, but it's okay. And I hope that other people are able to hear a lot of the things you say and pick up on that too, is I'm doing these things to reach these goals, but also because I want to be better for my daughter, and I want to make her better than I was. Yeah. And we all have those reasons to do those things, but it does take integrity. We do have to care. And you and I had talked earlier about just the power of just giving a shit. Like, give a shit about your clients, your business, about doing things for a better reason. Like, do it for a bigger purpose, and set a goal that has some gravity, and then it's easier for it to stick.
Well, too many people are unfortunately stuck in a phase where they're a part of some sort of chain and some sort of institution, and they view themselves as like, well, I'm not the one with the corner office. I'm not the one with the reserved parking spot. I'm not the one with the title and the pay grade that comes along with that. So I don't matter.
Right.
And my wife and I, because we just moved to Austin, Texas. And so, we went from living in New York City in this 2-bedroom apartment that was like maybe 1,300 square feet to suddenly now in Austin, Texas, to this huge house, right? Because it's incredibly different. And so we had to furnish this house. So we're like, okay, we got to, buy this, we got to buy that. And we went to some stores that are pretty well known, and we bought some stuff. And suddenly, they're delayed and the shipment's not there. And so we're calling, and the person we're talking to is speaking to us with this attitude, with this tone. And I said to my wife, she doesn't understand. She thinks that, well, you know what? It's not my problem. I'm not the one that's essentially the money's coming out of my pocket. But it is.
Right.
Because you know what? You now lost us as customers, and we're going to tell everyone else. And now you've lost maybe 5 or 10 more people as customers. If that company goes down,
you lose a job.
You don't have a paycheck.
Right.
So back to the mindset of me being a private in the Army, of buying in and understanding, okay, well, this is not necessarily my long-term goal to be a private in the United States Army. I want to one day grow in the ranks and be maybe a colonel, a general, a first sergeant, a sergeant major, whatever it is. But it's like, no matter, but you're here now.
Right.
Like, you have those goals, but you're here now. Like, you're the one interacting with the client. You matter. You bring something to the table.
And what you do matters.
You do. It matters more than you would ever know.
Even if you don't like your boss or your company, it matters in how you do. Is like a military mindset. I have military friends that do well, and they'll say, making the bed, it was annoying when they had to do it, but they realize that mindset is start off in the morning by doing that with excellence, and then let that transcend through the rest of your day.
Absolutely.
And I think that's just like with any action, is the way that you do this is how you're going to do that. It isn't you're doing this. People say, well, I do this better because I care more. Right. But then this next thing might not matter as much today, so you won't do it well today.
Are you still going to show up? Yeah.
Right.
Are you still going to show up? Yeah. Are you still going to bring that same energy and the same mentality?
And then when it matters and you don't have the opportunity anymore, you lost out on it. So it really is, my dad, when I was younger and we had a good relationship, he had taught me that as he took me to work, and he worked for the movie industries. And we were there and it was dark. First ones there to open the door. We were the last ones to leave. 2 days later, it was a wrap party. And he said, I said, why would you open the door for your boss that you're not even paid for hours yet before you get here? And he said, people notice when you're the first one there and you're the last one to leave, and when you're the first one there and the last one to leave. You earned your paycheck, and you know what your worth is. And so those were things, again, as a kid, I was annoyed because I'm tired and I wish I didn't have to be here. Right. But years later, you look back and you realize those things get ingrained in you, and you just kind of go it does matter. Show up early, stay late. It's that work ethic.
It's that work ethic. It's the mentality of understanding your value and understanding what you bring to the table. Too many of us believe that we have no value, that we bring nothing to the table. That's incredibly incorrect. All of us have something that we can share, and that could be applied to someone else's life and help that individual. And then in return, it helps us. And it's all about how are you going to make somebody feel?
Yeah.
And that person on the phone dealing with my wife and I, that we're incredibly frustrated that now it's 5 weeks, past the delivery window, and where's our stuff? And then it finally comes, and there's a little bit of damage to the product, and we're like, hey, and she's like, well, listen, ma'am, there's nothing I could do about it. You can sit here and talk to this person. First of all, your tone already
is already bad. You already don't care.
You already don't care.
Yeah.
And it's so if you're really going to have this attitude, then it might be time for you to reevaluate and go somewhere else.
Right.
And I am and it's my wife gets on to me all the time, and she's like, why do you do this? And I will encounter a person like that, way. And I'm like, hey, let's talk for a second.
Right.
I came across this. I went to a coffee shop. We traveled a couple months ago, and it was late at night, and the coffee shop was about to close at the airport in about 10 minutes. And I walked in, and all I wanted was some tea. That's all I wanted. I was kind of under the weather, and I was like, I just want some tea. And the girl, the whole time, I was like, what teas do you have? And she's literally like this. She's like, we have, I'm calling somebody. She's like, we have this, and this, and that. And the whole time, never making eye contact with me. And I looked, and I said, don't you have a chart, like a menu or something? Because she just, rambling it on.
Right.
And she's like, oh, sorry, I should have given this to you. And she's like, here you go. And she goes back to and so
you're already frustrated. I don't even need major customer service, but could you look at me for a few seconds?
I just need hot water and
right.
a tea bag. That's it.
Yeah.
And so then I placed the order. I waited for her to give me my stuff, and then I was like, hey, you do with this what you wish, but this. You don't know who I am.
Right.
You don't know what I could potentially have been impacted by you if you would have actually shown, because I'm sure you're nice and you're pleasant, but you have no idea who I am. I could be, Howard Schultz. I could be anybody, from Starbucks, because that's where I was.
Yeah.
That suddenly is like, I want to hire this person, and they need to move
you
up.
Never
or they need
know
to be
that
in this
opportunity.
position. Instead, maybe I'm the person that says, now this person should be removed,
right?
Because they do not represent this brand.
Yeah, or even it doesn't even matter. At the end of the day, you're ingraining you're going to be a bare minimum type individual, which that hurts you more than even getting fired from that job, anyways, because you're never going to succeed in anything.
It's true, and it's incredibly true. And too many of us are just missing out on those very small things that turn into major things. Like, too many of us are overlooking those things, and we just become so fixated on trying to attain these bigger things that we forget that it's the small steps and the small things that we do,
and it's
that may feel like a lot in that moment, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't take. It takes. Is it really that hard to look at someone else and just be like, "Hey, hi, hello,"
right? And it's doing the things that are supposed to be done, even if you don't have to do them. And it doesn't just mean opening the door for somebody and things like that, which we normally think of, which you should anyways. But we've got a few examples. We had built out this extra class. I tested it for a year. All the staff was going through all the stress to add this different class. Had to build this whole room and this mezzanine and all this stuff, and we're about to launch a class. And I go in there personally, and I start working through the room, and I go, you know what, it needs to go out about 4 feet further. And they're like, we would have to knock this wall down, the mezzanine, this is going to be a huge thing. Everyone's not going to be able to do the class. I said, it's going to be the right way to do it. Everyone was like, dude, this is ridiculous. This is so stupid. Like, this is everyone's going to be mad. This is so dumb. It's 4 feet. What does a 4 feet matter? We ended up doing it, and after it went in there, everyone went through the flow, and they were like, it's just the right amount of space. If it were 4 feet shorter, it would have been a bad experience. People would have been too close, blah, blah. And so I use that as an example to my other owners of saying that cost me time, money, stress, and everybody was telling me it's not needed, and the class would have still worked. Right. It would have been, maybe no one would have noticed.
But I would have experienced.
I would have noticed, and I would have known it could have been better, and that's what could have affected me. And I think that's really what a lot of people, I want them to be able to see is, the girl at Starbucks is how you deliver at that job is an opportunity. How you approach your opportunity in your business is, even if you could get away with it because no one's asking, doesn't mean that you shouldn't do what you could do. We do stuff now and we roll out all this new equipment and all these things. Everybody tells, no one's asked for it. I say, if you're the expert and you're passionate about what you do and you know something's needed to be done, you know it before they know it, because they shouldn't even be asking for it. Right. Did anyone ask for an iPhone? Nobody asked for an iPhone.
Right. We got it.
They got it and go, I've always wanted this. I didn't even know I wanted this, but this is amazing. And I think that's when you're passionate about something and you're somebody that's in that space at a certain level, you have to just trust your gut and don't wait till somebody asks for it. Don't do extra just because somebody's insisting on it. Do it because that's the way that you operate and that's what you expect. Those are your standards.
Yeah, for sure.
Do the best the whole time. And the other thing you would hit on, which was everybody's good at something. You were saying everybody has that thing that they're good at. I think that's the issue, if they don't have the corner office and things like that is, in school I was horrible. And I was horrible because I wasn't focused. The teacher said you have ADD. I was always daydreaming about other stuff.
And I do that now.
Yeah, I still do too. And I tell
What'd
people,
you say?
Yeah, I tell people it was one of my greatest blessings because I had these dreams of me driving these cars and doing these things. And it just became like I almost lived a day in that life. And I realized how great it was that was a blessing for me to really, I held the value and the gravity of those things to me. But also is if I had defined myself by how I did in school, I would be nowhere because I would feel like an ignoramus. I'd be like, I don't know anything. I have no clue what's going on at any point. But I want people to realize you could be in a job where everyone tells you how horrible you are, and you could go to the next job and they tell you how horrible you are. You could be the person that couldn't make it through school, who can't do anything. You're going to find that one thing if you keep looking, and you're going to be the one that makes everyone go, holy shit. Yeah, they are really good at this. Right. And you're going to feel fulfilled. You're going to realize that's what you're supposed to be doing, and you're going to realize that you aren't an idiot. That wasn't your gift. That wasn't your area.
That wasn't the right environment for you.
Right.
To help you succeed.
Yeah, it could be the wrong job, the wrong skill set, the wrong environment. And all those things change. And you're going to learn if you keep trying. Don't sell yourself short and go, this is the best I got. Right. This is it. Whether it's being able to make more money to support your family and you just say, I never can do that, or it's moving to a different region where you're going to be happier and I can never live that life because I'm just not smart enough, talented enough, gifted enough. That guy's got more than I do. I'll tell you, and you could probably attest to it. I know a lot of successful people. They are no smarter than anybody else.
Yeah, they're really not. They just I mean, the
mindset's
they just
different.
surround themselves with the people that actually are smart,
Right?
And they're vulnerable enough to say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't have all the answers,
Right?
But they do, and we work together, or they work for me, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm going to learn from them, and that I'm going to take that information and then apply it. And I think that's the key. I mean,
and they're willing to be brave enough to take the leap to go do an acting job when they don't act, or go on Dancing with the Stars when they don't dance. I think it's a mindset and a willingness to bet on yourself. It's all these little things that have nothing to do with having a 140 IQ.
Right.
It has nothing to do with being a Harvard graduate. Those are the things we as a society go, you are capable of success and you're an idiot.
Right.
And
exactly.
we need to tear that down and go, there's a lot of these things that we haven't been able to quantify success in the right way and to be able to say, this is what it takes.
And I think it's important for me to touch on being someone who was on Dancing with the Stars and won the show. Just because I was on that show and I was able to dance, for those of you watching, doesn't necessarily mean that I can do that. Like I don't see me in public. Don't come up to me in public and say, "Hey, let's cha-cha." I can't. I don't know how to do. I don't.
You
like
were
I
able
was
to
taught.
master that for that one dance.
Like I mean, I tell you what, man. Like after I was on that show, I'd travel and people come up to me like, "Okay, now let's cha-cha," and I I don't know how to.
Yeah.
I don't know how to just grab a random person. Like I know
Which is
how
funny
to.
because that's what I thought of it too. I'm like, this can dance anytime.
No. I'm because the thing is, you're taught choreographed routine. So unless you
remember that forever, and that other person's going to do the same exact thing.
Unless you know Karina Smirnoff's routine, like steps, then we can make it look the way it looked on the show.
Right.
But if you don't, then it's not going to look pretty. So I've reverted now back to like the Running Man, the Sprinkler.
Ooh, those are clean,
those are classics, baby, that I just go to now. So it's funny because like after being on this show. I was asked to attend a couple years after, I forget exactly, but I was asked to attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which I was like, oh my God, this is cool.
Yeah,
and then there was an after party afterwards, and of course, like after you're on that show, there's all this pressure now.
Oh yeah.
And I remember going to this after party, and everyone's standing around the dance floor, and everyone's like looking at me like waiting. Oh, hey, there's the champion.
Yeah.
He's gonna bust it out. He's gonna do something.
Right.
Everybody clear the floor. And I'm like, nah, I'm just sitting there like this, like my drink, like, nah, I'm not gonna do anything, no, because it wasn't gonna be what I did on the show. Like I was gonna go back to my old original
in your
ways
mind,
of
you're
dancing.
thinking, how am I getting out of this?
I know.
Like,
and so there was all this pressure. So I remember, like, not a lot of people know this story, but I remember, like, suddenly I was on the dance floor and I'm dancing, and this girl comes up to me and she's like doing all this crazy stuff in front of me, right? Like almost like showing me up in a sense.
Right.
And then I was like, then suddenly my competitive, nature kicked in, and I was like, I can't let her show me up. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I started doing stuff too, and she goes real low, and she's doing this crazy dance move, and I was like, well, I can go low too, and I go real low too, and then suddenly. I split my pants.
Oh, I love it. That's my move.
I split my pants.
I do that every time. I love
literally split my pants. And I was like, I heard it. Nah, that's not what it is.
Right.
And so like I just kept doing my thing. Well, then I'm going to the restroom, and the security guard, he said, hey, my man. I was like, what's up? He's like, oh, your pants are split in the back. You split your pants. And I was like,
you were like, dude.
I was like trying to play it off, trying to be cool. Like, nah, it's all good, man. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. I went into the bathroom and looked in the mirror, bro. Like, I swear, like from the middle of my ass all the way down, I'm right above my knee. Like, my pants were all the way split, bro.
Dude, I do that every time.
I was like, how? And see the thing, like I was on dancing, and you know what the stories are: people lose weight because you're dancing all the time, all day, right? Yeah. But I was already when I joined the show, I was in pretty good shape, because I was working out a lot, not because I knew I was going to be on the show, just because I was like that's what the emphasis I put on. And so when I got on the show, I was like eating like a fool. Like I was like, oh, I'm burning it anyway.
Yeah,
so like Karina and I would say we need lunch, and we'd ask someone to go, here's $20, go to the Subway down the street and
3 footlongs.
No, they would bring us a platter of cookies.
Oh,
and we just
love
eat
it.
cookies, man. Like that's what we did. I would eat pasta all day long. I mean, I was just eating junk. So then when the show ended, then
you were heavier.
I was blowing up, man. Like it started blowing. So the suit that I was wearing also was a little snug. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
But it's funny because like people come up to me all the time and they're like, they put all this pressure on me, like, oh, you're gonna do.
Yeah, you're gonna. That's
do.
me too. I'm always trying to get you to bust a move too. So now I know. You're like, oh no.
That was more for him, not for you guys.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, I didn't deny it. I took it.
But yeah, man, it's man, I just want to, as someone who experienced the class today and, the environment, I mean, I want to commend you, man, because I think you really are doing it the right way. And just from, obviously meeting you, but then meeting the staff and meeting, people that were taking your class and, just the environment and the sense of community and the sense of empowerment that is existing between male and females and those that are in top-notch shape and those that are striving and working towards that to attain that goal. I mean, it was incredible. It was incredibly like just it's infectious. You know what I mean? Like it was like, man, I want to be a part of this and I want to do this. And I called my wife afterwards. I was like, babe, this was solid. This was cool. I was like, you should do it. And she's like, oh my God, it sounds amazing. And I was like, yeah. So I loved what you've built out, man. I love that, you've asked me to come on this show, man, and just share a little bit of my experience and what has allowed me, what are the basic principles that I've applied to my life that have allowed me to become the person that a lot of people know now.
Yeah. I appreciate that a lot because obviously you're, somebody, like I said, I became a huge fan and you ended up, being able to take the class was an honor for me to have you there and for you to love it is obviously, like I said, I'm very passionate about it. So to have you enjoy it is something that means a lot. And I'm hoping that after everything, we hit on a few things that, there's one thing that resonates at the end of this that I hope people are able to take away from this also is you had said that, in these moments of great struggle and, these of great tragedy, having these small goals, being able to see through that fog or through that darkness and see that there is an ability to set at least a small goal is, I think, something powerful. But also in those moments is being able to see this list of things, hear how great you've done and all the amazing things you've done for yourself, your family, what a strong, an amazing example you've been for other people, that sometimes out of those greatest struggles and those greatest tragedies, you are going to experience some of the greatest things in life after.
Yeah.
I'm sure so hard to see that in that moment, but
you just got to hang on. You just got to hang on. I mean, obviously, I don't want to, spend too much time on this, but, obviously we're in a space now and where, suicide is a major issue. And, a lot of people, they get into that space, unfortunately, and there's a lot of different reasons why people unfortunately fall into, into that. But, a lot of people get into that space of where it's dark. It's a dark room, and they just think, well, there's no way that door is ever going to open. And it's unfortunate because all you have to do is just hang on a little bit longer. Yes, it hurts, and yes, it's painful, and you just have to hang on just a little bit longer, and understand that the life is like a clock, meaning. When you look at a clock, 12 is at the top, 6 is at the bottom. 12 to me represents the high point in your life. Everything's going amazing. 6 being at the bottom, naturally, we understand what that means. But there's a hand that moves around on that clock, right? And the only reason that hand moves around because there's batteries in the clock. But if there's no batteries, it'll get stuck at 6 or somewhere in that vicinity. And guess what? You're constantly unhappy and you're constantly dealing with pain. You're constantly dwelling on the past. And so for me, what I always tell people is like, put batteries in it.
Yep.
And put batteries in it. And what you're going to notice is that you'll get out of that 6 and you'll come around to 12. But it's also important to understand that hand has to come back around to 6. It's inevitable. Right. It's going to happen. We all
have those bottoms a few times.
Yeah, but because you've already gotten through one of those bottoms, the next time it rolls around, you're like, I got this.
Yep.
So the key is put some batteries in it. Hang on. Get yourself up to 12. Get those small little victories. And then you start to see. And that's why, for me, I want people, again, I hope you guys are able to take at least one of the things that we touched on. But for me, I want people to, in those dark moments and those moments of struggle for me, I had moments where I thought I'd be better off if they would have just let me die and leave me in the Humvee to die. What life am I going to have? I had plenty moments after the fact that I said to myself, like, I don't want to be alive. And I had all of those moments. And to be where I am today, I think is one of the many examples that exist in this world of people that have had those same thoughts and feelings, but just hung on just a little bit longer. And then suddenly found themselves. I mean, I was 16 years old getting jumped by everyone in town because I didn't fit in. And I remember one day my mom coming up to me and she saw me crying in my room. She's like, "What's wrong?" And I said, I feel like I don't belong. I feel like, I feel out of place. And I feel like sometimes I have these visions in my head of getting into a car accident just to see who would show up at the hospital. 16 years old, I was having these thoughts.
Yep.
Right? I mean, a lot of us would label that as that's a potential suicidal thought. Like,
right.
What is that? Did I do it? No, I didn't. But I was already kind of going into this space because I just felt like this isn't the environment for me. What I do a year later? I orchestrated for us to leave,
to move,
that
take
community.
action.
All right, get out of that. Then if that environment is not nourishing me, like you said, maybe it's not the right environment, maybe it's not the right job title, maybe it's not the right skill,
career path or skill. Yeah.
Like change,
right?
Change. I
think it's like you said, is sometimes is even in those moments, I had just recently posted for the first time, and I've shared a lot of dark things because I think it can help people, even if they're hard for me to share. I had just I think it was weeks ago, shared that I had a suicide attempt when I was 16, and my mom had to, my sister walked in the moment that it was happening, called the ambulance. I ended up at the hospital, and the next day I was obviously I made it and I was okay, and so I was there for a few more days. And it's hard because I'll hear other people, and I never shared that. Even when I had put it up, I had good friends from that time going, "I didn't even know that ever happened." And that was something that was just always. After I was out of the hospital, I parted ways from my mom and started couch surfing, and I never looked back. But in those moments, it's so hard because I'd hear people after talk about people that are that try to commit suicide. They're selfish and they do this and that. It's hard for them to understand that in that moment, it's not selfish. You almost think you're doing people a favor because you're such a burden and because this is so bad. And like my life, there is no possibility it's going to get better than it is now, likely worse. And I'm just going to be a burden and a disappointment. Everything's bad. So, I want those people that feel those ways. I hope that they can see an example in yourself and in me to say, look where we are today. I would never have been able to help the people I've helped. I'd never be able to be in the position I'm in if I had stuck with that mindset of I'm only as good as I am today and I'll never get better.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to hang on for a moment. And even if it's the smallest glimpse, obviously I don't think someone's going to watch this podcast that's in a great state of depression and go, I feel amazing today and I'm going to conquer the world.
Right.
But just for a second, just to say, if they were where I'm at and they were able to hold on and end up where they are, it means there is a possibility.
There's hope.
There's hope.
There's hope.
There's hope that things could be better for me in the future.
Yeah.
And I could be much more than a burden. I could be someone that actually helps people in a great way and does something better.
Sure.
If you feel that that's even a slight possibility, I think that can change somebody's mindset.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good note to
Man,
drop
I mean,
it
what
on.
What else do we wrap this thing up on?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing else that I can add that would, add any other value than what you just said and the way you summed it up, man. But I just, again, want to thank you for, sharing your platform, with me and hopefully, I was able to share something to all of the listeners and the viewers out there and they're able to apply some of what we discussed. Most importantly, man, keep doing what you're doing. And when I'm in the area, I'll definitely be hitting up Hardcore Fitness.
For sure. More leg days.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It might be a while if I do another leg day.
Me too. But I appreciate you coming out. I hope you guys took something from it. And make sure, what's your Instagram?
I am JR Martinez.
And is there anywhere else they can find you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, jrmartinez.com. Obviously, Facebook and Twitter is the same thing. I am JR Martinez.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, make sure that you guys follow him, check him out. And I'm going to be doing a few giveaways that if you guys are already subscribers or you guys are part of the email list, I'll send you guys some stuff and I'll link up with him and see what kind of stuff we can hook you guys up with. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Some dance lessons.
Oh, yeah.
No.
You better make sure you got the dance moves perfected because those are the only ones he can do. Sprinkler it. So thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys at the next episode.
Peace.